Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in to watch the re-release of my documentary. It also records right around the time that the golden age of the internet died, where YouTube was a wild west and you could find any conspiracy out there that you wanted. But now, it's a very different story. And what happened was the men in white lab coats pushing a cosmological perspective when another larger conspiracy happened in 2020, an additional flexing of the censorship muscle of the kind of the system at large, whether it's the internet or YouTube, Facebook, whatever. But there was actually a precedence of censorship set in 2017 to 2018, and that's why this topic is so important. Even if you don't agree with the overarching culmination of all these underlying conspiracies, if you can agree with some of these underlying truths, then you have more in common with a flat earther than you know. As the world's changing, things are getting crazier, conspiracies are getting darker, and some of the most beautiful relationships and things were formed around events like this. It was one of my first early projects. I've been working on it really since I started my alt media journey, but yeah, I'm very excited for you guys to see it.
I want y'all to take a look up above you at the disco ball. You see what's going on? Look on the wall. Even a disco ball performs parallax. The stars don't.
The Flat Earth Theory. It used to be the last conspiracy even conspiracy theorists looked at. Just a few years ago, a word search on YouTube would yield videos with several thousand views. Nothing truly viral. Yet somehow this fringe topic, in the past 2 years, has exploded into the public eye.
What's that? Where? There. I hope that teaches you a lesson you never forget.
Recoil, disdain.
You're wrong!
Hold on.
Tim.
No.
I'm sorry. No. You have a lot of cognitive dissonance.
Mass public re-education.
It's just a cough.
Yeah, right. And the earth is flat.
Treat your cough seriously with Robitussin CF Max.
The earth isn't flat.
This is what I see now, along with a new search result. Video after video with millions of views, all addressing the topic. If it is so crazy, so far out there, this topic of cosmology and the shape of the Earth, why is it getting so much attention? Instead of trying to debunk the theory, I decided to entertain it, to become friends with the people who have decided to take another look at reality as we have been taught. Whether it was purely an intellectual exercise or a draw of such a contrarian position, I decided to try and figure it out. Why do people believe the Earth is flat? Bottom line, what if? What if they're not crazy? What if there's some truth to what is being exposed? What if NASA has lied to us about some things? What if the ancients were onto something, and modern scientists are trying to hide a creator? What if we have been indoctrinated in some things falsely? Have I actually seen the curvature with my own eyes? Have you? What if some of the conspiracies that have led people to this belief are factual? Could there be official documentation supporting the theory? But what about the moon landings? How could they have lied? Wouldn't this be a conspiracy that's too big to hide? Everyone knows the Earth is round, right? I don't want to be anti-science, so what is the evidence? Who would be in charge of the deception? What if the Earth is flat? Wait, I get it. You are automatically having a strong reaction against what was just proposed. But listen, the intellectual value of what you're about to watch, that is, if you decide to stick around for the remainder of this film, is this. Freedom of speech involving the internet is about to be assaulted more than any other time since its conception. You might not be a flat earther, but the fact of the matter is, some pretty interesting points are being brought up by conspiracy theorists, and they don't really line up with the mainstream narrative.
The fire was just too intense.
That a hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site, if you can believe that.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories.
1,700-acre secluded redwood grove. Leaders from around the world, prime ministers, chancellors, presidents, governors, again, the heads of industry, banking, academia, the media, Hollywood, travel there to engage in bizarre, ancient Canaanite, Luciferian, Babylon mystery religion ceremonies.
Midsummer sets us free. You burn me once again. Now with me, playing.
Men who've participated in this ritual are Dwight D. Eisenhower, Richard Nixon, Warner von Braun, Herbert Hoover, and astronaut Neil Armstrong.
Hail Fellowship's eternal flame. Once again, midsummer sets us free.
Are you afraid to take a look? Already, social media platforms like Facebook and YouTube are censoring fringe topics that are deemed too controversial. It boils down to what is the objective truth, and who gets to decide what information is dangerous or not. For Christians and people of religious faith, this should be a particularly pertinent topic because many already challenge modern scientific positions such as the theory of evolution, or even the Big Bang, a belief that's held by many modern scientists.
Millionth of a 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 second. It went from a size smaller than an atom to bigger than a galaxy.
Or the accuracy of carbon dating methods, with their own independent research that supports biblically confirming topics like a worldwide flood or intelligent design. These fly in the face of many institutions and scientific communities, just like Flat Earth. How long until these positions are deemed dangerous by information-sharing platforms? What if there is something fishy to the information we have been conditioned to believe as absolute truth? The moon landings? False flags?
Now it is a seed upon the wind, taking root in many nations.
Vaccines?
You get your information from a book written by men you've never met, and you take their words as truth.
Photographs of Earth? Could many smaller inconsistencies...
It's incredible that we can keep track of Egyptian pots from 2,000 years ago, but we lose tapes made only 40 years ago.
We've been unable to track it down.
Be leading people to the overarching and stigmatized belief that the Earth is flat. I've attended every conference in North America since the movement began.
My name is Jacob Grant, and I'm traveling to the first International Flat Earth Conference.
What brings you here?
Flat Earth Convention. The Flat Earth International Convention 2017.
unaware that they're about to have their worldview rocked. These travelers are about to witness a flat Earth billboard.
You can see that they're obviously dedicated to getting the word out that the Earth is flat. So we'll see. Hopefully they get the attention they need and some people will see this driving down the highway. Very, very interesting.
In search of the truth. The flat truth.
The truth.
Great. ICTV. Yeshua.
Hi, I'm Robbie Davidson. I'm the founder and organizer of FEC, Flat Earth International Conference. The intention also with the media was to show the media that obviously, we're serious and that there's something going on and it definitely needs to be, brought about and talked about. So.
Than it does for me now. Back in the sweet bliss of ignorance before I knew the things that I know today, and before, several hundred trolls decided to wake up every morning and assault every single thing I say on social media. Those were the good old days before that. Well, those days are gone, so we're going to talk about my journey here today. A quest for truth. Who am I, first of all?
Rob Skiba, baby.
Skiba. Oh, yeah. More people need to get out there and question why they believe what they believe. Just get out there and start doing tests for yourself. Because when you see it for yourself, that's a game changer. It's one thing to listen to me or some other speaker talk about, our experiences or what we believe. That's okay, whatever. But you go out there and do it for yourself. Oh, wow. Then you're a believer. And then you're going to go out and spread it to everybody you know. And then, my whole thing is like, look, don't believe me, go test it for yourself. You go test it for yourself and say, hey, don't believe me, go test it for yourself. And just kind of perpetuate that.
Many people want to know, what is your justification for believing in the flat Earth?
Every one of us got into this. None of us got into this to try to prove flat Earth. All of us got into this to try to disprove flat Earth, to try to prove the globe, to try to hold on to what we think we believe. But in the process of doing our own tests and observations, we found, something different than what we thought we understood to be true.
I believe the Earth is flat.
Flat. Flat.
Flat.
Flat.
Flat.
Flat.
Flat. Flat.
Flat.
Flat.
Flat. Because
couldn't find the curvature.
Level of water.
Hydrostatic equilibrium.
A body of water cannot be convex at the surface.
The Bible says so?
Because God is not a liar. He said it's flat, so it's flat. The Bible.
The Bible.
The Bible.
The Bible. I believe the Word of God.
God said so. The Bible tells me so.
And so we changed our view.
A lot of what has drawn flat earthers to the belief is a skepticism of modern science, a skepticism of organizations like NASA. And this is not because they deny the importance of real science, but because they want to challenge the false religion of science, so-called.
I'm Joe Taylor from Crosbyton, Texas, near Lubbock in West Texas. I am the founder and the curator of the Mount Blanco Fossil Museum in the same town. So the flat Earth thing here, once you get into paleontology, you get into giants, which gets into Nephilim, which gets into other biblical questions, which raises the question of, is the government, have the public schools and institutions told us the truth? So the flat Earth guys come along and they go, no, they lied about that too. So I said, well, okay, let me look into it. So that's what I'm doing.
I have my camera Nikon P900. I saw buildings far away, places far away, and I did the calculation, and there's no way the Earth is an sphere.
70% of the Earth's surface is covered with flat water.
are Christians willing to question and challenge the cosmology that is presented by the same scientists that push the theory of evolution?
This stuff right here, high altitude balloon fluids, we've all seen it. But this is without the fake curve created by these fisheye lenses and cameras. When I begin to see this, 108,000 feet, 121,000 feet, when I begin to see this kind of stuff right here, I was like, man, this is for real, folks. This can't be ignored.
As I was sitting with people there at the conference, I realized many were coming from a biblical faith-based perspective on why they believed the earth was flat, but that also led them into scientific exploration.
But no, the Bible says prove all things, test all things, prove it, make sure.
Amen.
So that's what we did, right? So did I go to just YouTube videos? No, I went to NASA's website. This is from space.com. These are NASA pictures.
What is their system of scientific research?
Today we announce the formation of Field Engineers Corps, an international group dedicated to true scientific discovery, free of dogmatic agenda.
FE Corps is a nonprofit organization of talented individuals devoted to discovering truth. We will expand knowledge beneficial to all people by bringing together expertise, dedication, and funding to conduct purposeful scientific observations.
FE Corps is research-based upon actual observation and not assumptions.
The result will be proven facts.
These new facts will result in a myriad of benefits to all on Earth.
It's time to challenge the status quo and remove the veil of pseudoscience.
And it's the handiwork of God that we're trying to show and break the dogmatic indoctrination. And I do believe this is satanic at the core. So we're bringing the group together. We brought a group together, and I do believe it's God doing this. And you're looking at people that have been passionate and gone through a lot.
And we have a lot of fantastic people involved, a lot of really smart engineers and technical people, ranging everywhere from agricultural experts to engineering, mechanical, electrical, all kinds of disciplines, and we're always looking for great people to bring into the organization. So this is going to be the chance where we have to be able to do our science and present it to the world.
They look at flat earthers as crazy. They look at flat earthers as people who wear tinfoil hats.
That line of thinking has undoubtedly labeled me as a full-fledged tinfoil hat-wearing conspiracy theorist.
You're not alone.
Yeah.
I thought it was aluminum.
The concept that we have to put blind faith in the establishment, put blind faith in NASA and the things they tell us about our cosmology through an inquisitive search for the truth, that flat earthers have come to this belief that the earth is flat through their own experimentation.
What I've learned, basically, after studying many of the events, from the creation of the Federal Reserve to the real reasons that countries go to war, to 9/11, to the fake Apollo missions, to chemtrails, okay? And 1,000 other so-called conspiracy theories, is that these events are much closer to being conspiracy fact than conspiracy theory any day of the week. For many of these grand illusions to be successfully perpetrated, a collaboration at the very highest levels of government needs to be taking place. Definitely something wrong with this world, and I think most of us are aware of that. And after a while, while researching NASA, I became quite aware that all of the published images that are out there are clearly fabricated. And that's kind of how I came into Flat Earth, was researching, looking at NASA. Well, maybe the reason that NASA is hiding everything and doing all the fake underwater photos and all this stuff is maybe because they're hiding the fact that the Earth is not what they have told us. So we've all seen these pictures, the famous blue marble, the fact that they're created in Photoshop.
It is Photoshop, but it's has to be. It is Photoshop, but it's has to be. It is Photoshop, but it's.
Well, you notice that these guys made
all about CGI. For example, this is a software that ESA uses to all that picture taken from the ground, and they compose it on the Photoshop. They have their own apps running inside Photoshop, and so that is how they mix the lights and present that like a real galaxy taken from the Hubble. So it's all made on computer, and when you see that
As I was sitting there listening to some of this information for the first time, a lot of the techniques that NASA uses to project the worldview that we have started to make sense in the eyes of a flat earther who was debunking the information. I was hooked. I mean, the skepticism comes from NASA's ability to alter these images and from recordings that seem to indicate that there was an attempt to alter the view that people had of what they were doing with the space programs. And from my conspiratorial background, this just intrigued me so much, so I had to keep listening.
And of course they have the most technology painting balls ever made, which is this one. So they do it only in the. This is a picture from the 80s, because in the 80s the CGI technology, it was better painting than doing a computer.
And the evidence is absolutely overwhelming.
Are you able to defend your belief that the Earth is a sphere? And also, are you willing to question science at large when they have been proven to have lied to you in the past?
The next leg of my journey was the Canadian Flat Earth Conference.
Welcome to FA 2018 Canada.
You would think that a Flat Earth Conference would hold enough excitement, but while we were there, some of the most alarming and exciting things yet began to happen.
Well, it's on my phone. It's 3:33. Weirdly enough, perfect time to start, right? Well,
That's Patricia Steer. She likes to make videos about flat Earth. You may have seen her in the recent Netflix documentary Behind the Curve. She also likes cats. Some people have called her a government agent, but she seemed pretty normal to me.
It's the secret show. Let's be abnormal together.
In fact, people like to say that about pretty much anybody that speaks at these conferences, as well as some other pretty threatening statements. Patricia is about to get interrupted by a pretty alarming noise.
I've really enjoyed everything so far on day 2 of the Flat Earth Conference. And this is the first time I have ever been to Edmonton. I've been to other places in Canada, and really happy to be here. And the mall is amazing, and I did buy a couple things there. Unfortunately, I said I wouldn't, but I did. Well, somebody open the door.
Dinner? You guys gotta get in here.
Hey,
the aliens.
But nobody knows what that bell is or how to stop it?
Anyone?
That's Mark Sargent. He made the Flat Earth Clues videos, and it got a lot of people investigating the Flat Earth theory.
The Earth is flat because I made the Flat Earth Clues, and it's on YouTube right now.
He's the guy that pointed at the Flat Earth door.
All I did was walk up to a door, point at it, and say, you know what? I think there's some really interesting things on the other side of this.
We're gonna get rained on, boys.
Bingo!
The supply goes flat. Yeah.
It's the house. If you're able to understand those beings.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain where you are. Our response team is on their way to locate the source of the alarm. We thank you for your cooperation and patience during this time. We'll share more information shortly.
I told him the fire alarm is the worst fire alarm ever.
This is Jaron Campanella. He makes a lot of videos too, and does some pretty cool experiments to test the curvature of the Earth. He was also in the film Behind the Curve. In the film, there was an experiment that seemed to prove that there was some type of curvature. Did the experiment debunk the flat Earth theory, or is there a reasonable explanation from Jaron regarding the experiment? Most media has been misrepresenting the positions of flat earthers, so there could be an explanation.
Best explained as simply a mirage.
Ladies and gentlemen, the meltdown you have just heard is part of our first stage alarm system. Please remain where you are. Presently, our response team is on their way to locate the source of the alarm. Carefully look for any immediate danger to yourself. Please wait for further instructions over our communication system. We apologize for any inconvenience.
Beginning at the end.
You gotta stop right for the bell. Go, Bob.
Huh? This is not normal. This is my specialty. Shut it down. Shut it down.
Shut it down.
Hey, give me. Okay, listen up. I don't know what's going on. This is my specialty, and they are letting us know that we need to stay in place. So I need everybody to stay in the room. Okay? Make sure this door is secured because it's locked. Well, that door closed also.
That's John. He's with conference security, and he's there to keep us calm.
Okay? So just everybody stay calm. We can figure out what's going on. Robbie's going to go get somebody.
Why are you calm?
I'm calm.
Okay.
Hate to see you excited.
There's nothing better than being locked in a room full of conspiracy theorists who think they're under an emergency threat.
I'm on.
Ladies
This
and
is supposed to
gentlemen,
happen.
the meltdown you've just heard is part of our first stage alarm system. Please remain where you are. Presently, our response team is on their way to locate the source of the alarm. Carefully look for any immediate danger to yourself.
This is Rob Skiba. Rob begrudgingly became a flat earther through his own attempts to debunk the theory.
Okay, so what do you think, Rob?
I can see Chicago. We're about 42 miles away. I can see it.
200 copper. That's so. There's a city right there.
He's a black belt in conspiracy, but he also has spent a lot of time investigating what the Bible has to say about the earth.
Allowing the Bible to speak for itself. Below are a number of Bible verses without commentary.
I grew up as a missionary kid on the other side of the world. So I guess if the earth is round, I was upside down most of my childhood. I've since come to my own conviction of faith, so what the scriptures say is important to me. Could the Bible say the earth is flat? We'll look into this later.
Here's a really nicely done drawing somebody did showing the ancient Hebrew conception of the universe. This is from Logos Bible software, which is really interesting.
Please wait for further instructions over our communication system.
This is Bob Nodell of the Globebusters. He likes to take a rational approach to the flat earth question.
We are of the opinion that not only is the earth flat, and I don't mean there's not surface features like mountains and stuff like that, but we're not on an actual ball, it's a plane.
Science has been shifting from discovery to dogma.
Dogma is a belief. Science is discovery based upon reason and repeatable observations.
When science is dogmatic, its goal is to defend a theory. When an established theory judges the validity of new observations, scientific discovery ends.
Is there actual science that's repeatable and testable that can point to a flat earth conclusion? What about evidence to the contrary? Bob and a couple other guys tackled these questions on their show.
Investigate it yourself, do your own research. That's what matters.
We apologize for any inconvenience.
Turns out forest fires were filling the upper levels of the hotel with smoke.
My eyes started burning, so it's definitely uncomfortable.
I think I am getting a little bit hoarse, yeah.
Edmonton looks like it's been picked up and relocated to the surface of Mars, with the smoke casting an eerie red glow over the city.
The speakers I introduced are regulars at the conferences.
So many of you have been through so much pain.
And have made many of the most influential Flat Earth videos. However, they are simply a small number of the activists spreading Flat Earth information.
The globe head, you can actually see out of it and everything, so we got a little helmet that we ripped out in here and put in there, and then we've got sunglasses that are actually American flag glasses, so.
They're gonna get smacked with the truth.
the reality in which we live in. Okay, so you're not worthless. I'm telling you, you are. Worth something.
No, I'm worthless. I am worthless. You are worthless. You are worthless. Everyone is worthless.
Sounds like he's been listening to a little bit too much of Bill Nye.
I'm a speck on a speck with a bunch of other specks, orbiting a speck with billions of specks in the middle of specklessness. I suck. I am nothing.
I run the largest flat earth group in the world.
Is it Tech Society?
No. What's that? Society nothing. It's called the Official Flat Earth and Globe Discussion. There's 120,000 people in there.
Wow.
Hey guys, you guys ever researched flat earth? Thank you. Yeah, my pleasure. Have you ever looked into flat earth? My girl likes to flat earth all the time, flat earth all the time, flat earth.
I like to compare the movement to how Marvel built the Avengers thematic universe. At first, you had Iron Man and Thor, and a Hulk movie or two, all building their own fan bases. Then, you have a guy like Robbie Davidson, we can call him Captain Canada, who called everyone to assemble!
Eh?
And before you know it, there is a team of people all ready to take on the world. Social influencers had jumped on the strange viral trend, some making videos debunking Flat Earth, others entertaining it. A whole slew of celebrities, talk show hosts, and other media sources had to add their 2 cents to the Flat Earth topic. Let's see some of what they had to say, because this can show us a lot about how the movement grew as a whole.
You went on a podcast and you said you believed the Earth was flat. But
on that podcast, I was just really like, man, what's going on within our world? And just a whole bunch of truth and conspiracy. I was just like, whoa, this is too much for me. And then I come out and say that, and then, whoo.
I know, flat Earth, one of the most controversial theories of all time. And I'm gonna be honest, I've never even looked into it because there's such a stigma around it.
We're going to talk about the flat earthers.
What is a flat Earth society, by the way?
People believe the Earth is flat.
Still?
Yeah.
That was a joke about the world being flat, right?
Was it?
B.O.B.
B.O.B.
Rapper B.O.B. blowing up Twitter with his theories on the actual shape of the Earth.
Rapper B.O.B., perhaps you know him for hits like Airplanes and Nothing on You. He firmly believes that the Earth is flat. He is on a Twitter mission to prove it, and he says he has photographic evidence and that we've been fooled all this time.
I'm gonna have to do something I rarely do. I gotta hit the science panic button.
Science Emergency Defense Program initiated.
All right, listen, B.O.B., once and for all.
So they got at you about the flat Earth thing.
Rising is always eye level. Once you go flat, you never go back. Where is the curve?
I'd like to thank everybody who donated to Appreciate It. However, I made a few alterations to the campaign by raising the original amount from 200,000 to $1 million.
It may be the beginning of the end of our informed democracy. Of course, in a free society, you can and should think whatever you want. And if you want to think the world is flat, go right ahead.
But I love having discussions because they always say that we don't have no proof the Earth is round. I'm like, well, y'all don't really have proof the Earth is flat. It's just an opinion, really.
Well, you know, it's true. And also, you know, the first civilization to introduce the globe, Earth, was the Roman Empire.
Being wrong becomes being harmful to the health, the wealth, and the security of our citizenry.
I'm the type of person, man, I question everything, man. You know, I grew up learning the same curriculum that everybody learned. I just, you know, I take a second look.
Is the Earth flat or round? It's round. Okay, now let's see. How do we go about proving that? If you'd like, look at pictures from space where you see the Earth as a sphere. Those pictures are not fake.
All the pictures that they take of the Earth are composite images, so no images that we see are actually ever a camera from real far away looking at the Earth. Wait, what do you mean? They're all composite images because they can't just get it all in one shot, so they have to go around the Earth and take a bunch of pictures and then they piece it together.
International Space Station residents only see about 3% of Earth's surface at any one time.
If you zoom in on them, there's cloud formations that repeat several times, which how could that ever really happen? They're just copying and pasting things.
There's a small problem with it because there's a very slight gap in between each orbit. It is photoshopped, but it's has to be.
If Earth isn't flat,
then how come our shoes are like this and not like this? I'm just playing around, guys. We're just having fun here. Laughing at flat earthers. How original. How clever. Takes such bravery to be such contrarian in today's society.
How do you know that the earth is flat?
Well, I've watched over 50 hours of video.
That's it. That's how you know. If you watch a lot of YouTube videos, that's evidence.
It was in the 16th century that the earth was shown to be a ball. But it was known to be a ball by a lot of other people before Copernicus in the Western world.
For centuries, a flat Earth was accepted as certainty until science and sailboats said otherwise.
One of the rules of power is you never admit that there's someone bigger than yourself.
But in 2015, this guy, Mark Sargent, posted his flat Earth clues.
1, 2, 3. We're not crazy!
Like many modern movements, this one has grown in large part out of the internet, with rappers like Odd TV evangelizing to hundreds of thousands of subscribers.
No more living on a cartoon ball.
And YouTube channels like
Globebusters,
encouraging skepticism about what you've been taught.
Then all of a sudden, when you started looking up on Google and YouTube about the flat earth, where 6 months ago, a year ago, it was all pretty cool videos that gave you reasons to believe maybe this is a possibility. Yeah. But now when you Google it, it's all sketches about how stupid it is, or like, people are so dumb and I can't believe people believe this. So it's almost, how do you stop information from spreading? You discredit all of it by flooding the information highways with the debunking stuff, or you're crazy if you believe this.
This is a day that's going to be etched in history. It's a quest for truth, and it can seem crazy, but all of us laughed at this topic, including myself. This is probably the most ridiculous thing I ever thought that I'd be doing, and here I am organizing the Flat Earth International Conference, but I'm not laughing anymore.
1, 2, 3. We're not crazy! Some of us are just nuts!
The government actually has a website called the Flat Earth Society, just to spread bad information. Why would the government put out information to debunk something that's clearly insane? You know, because right when you Google it, if all you see is you're crazy if you believe this, why would you want to look further into that? So it doesn't ever let you get to the point of the theory that really has value.
Done about a dozen experiments. I was actually looking to debunk flat Earth. I'm not like diehard flat earther. I want to be a flat earther. I want to believe the government. I want to believe what we've been told our whole life. There's nothing worse than being like, oh, the people that we pay taxes to are lying to us with our money.
Rob Skiba is another one of the celebrity contrarians in the Flat Earth movement. His popular YouTube videos and podcasts take clues from the Bible's book of Genesis.
There's no way you can get a spinning heliocentric globe out of anything in the Bible.
Are you just skeptical of everything?
I have become skeptical of everything, and I think rightfully so.
Pretty much everyone here, though, is kind of a conspiracy theorist.
I'd say that's a common trait.
With the internet, your stupidity can make you famous.
So what about astronauts?
The space shots are actually shot in a swimming pool. And they are shot in a place that's called the NASA Neutral Buoyancy Lab, okay? And in this neutral buoyancy lab, they have a full-sized mock-up of the ISS.
I was told my tax dollars were going to murdering monkeys in space. And now you're telling me they're just faking it in a jacuzzi?
I think they cling to it because it feels to them like they have special knowledge that other people aren't aware of, and that gives you a sense of purpose and a sense of meaning.
Flat Earthers, you need to become more consistent with your theories, please.
Everybody here can agree on absolutely one thing, which is it is not a globe.
Don't waste my time.
The flat Earth would be a circular flat area surrounded by a field that is known as Antarctica.
I sympathize with these people. Clearly they are lacking something in their life to cling on to these obscure ideas. And probably best to just leave it at that.
These clips are a small sampling of the most viewed Flat Earth videos out there. The celebrity stamp on the Flat Earth topic is directly responsible for millions of people looking into it worldwide. The next step of my journey was the Flat Earth International Conference 2018. It was in Denver, and the media had already primed it to be a spectacle.
Hundreds of people who believe the Earth is flat are gathering in Denver today and tomorrow.
Some buzz was generated by another YouTube celebrity, Logan Paul, who was apparently on his own search for answers.
Okay, so you're a flat earther?
Yes, sir.
All right, so what have you said to him that convinced you to show up here?
Like, honestly, one of the first things I said to him was, when you wake up in the morning and you eat pancakes, you had so many other options. You could have had an apple.
His film turned out to be a publicity ploy, piggybacking on the viral trend. I guess he wanted to drop the mic on flat earthers like Neil deGrasse Tyson.
And by the way, this is called gravity.
My name is Logan Paul, and I think I'm coming out of the flat earth closet.
Though it only continued to funnel people towards the topic. People who were curious as to the actual beliefs of flat earthers.
Uh-oh. And, so, like, I don't know, and there's no curvature.
Since most media covering it took a satirical approach or misrepresented the positions, those who took the time to investigate often kept digging deeper than what was presented on the surface.
I would say that we were seeing way too far. On a ball of 24,900 miles in circumference, at 100 miles away, Logan, it's like 1.4 miles below the curvature of the Earth. We're zooming in on objects that are 400 or 500 miles away. It's an impossibility. We shouldn't be able to see that far. And then this year, infrared is starting to explode. We're able to see even further.
I put this in front of you.
Okay.
What comes to mind?
Lie. It's kind of crazy stuff, man, but I'm telling you, man.
Yo, I'm sort of like scared. Because there's some tomfoolery happening.
Yes. It is frightening. It's frightening. So I hear you, man. I hear you.
Man, Robbie, I just don't know what to believe anymore. You make a lot of good points.
The next person I talked to was Mad Mike Hughes. He's the first guy who'd shot himself into the sky outside of a government agency in order to draw attention to the flat earth cause.
The flat earth movement. Why do you believe that it's growing so exponentially? What sets this apart from other conspiracy theories?
God, I just hate to use the conspiracy theory. That's another conspiracy, one that was used, okay? It came around in the 60s. Although Kennedy used it in a speech in either 62 or 63, I've seen the speech.
Or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy.
They may be a CIA term. Of course, the CIA is the biggest drug dealers in the world. I'm just telling you, they are.
So specifically, what do you think sets apart the flat earth movement?
It's just the biggest conspiracy, okay? It's the biggest thing that people can't grasp, okay? Because that's we're taught, first day of school, there's where you live, there's the globe, okay? We're brought into a school system, they tell you things before you can critically think about anything. And then you accept it as fact.
So tell us about your rocket. What brought you to actually start testing this theory on your own?
One day it pops on a YouTube video, okay? I go, oh boy. I start looking at it, and after 5 months I couldn't dismiss it. I understand there's ways to prove this thing on this planet that is flat, several ways, but no one's going to take it as collectively as gospel until someone goes up and looks at it in a bird's eye view of several cameras, 60-something miles up the edge of space, and I can do it for $2 million. That's why I'm here, to raise the money. And then collectively, it's a tipping point in our society.
After the conferences, I was starting to get a better understanding of the flat earth topic. I had even got interviewed by Vice regarding the term flat smacking, a process I would witness time and time again, as seemingly unsuspecting people were left dumbfounded by the most convincing flat earth points. Don't worry, I'll share these with you soon enough. It turns out few people can actually defend their belief that the earth is a globe. Would you be able to? Though I still had to do some groundwork. The next step was to witness some experiments for myself.
Went out with Rick Hummer to go on Lake Michigan and determine whether or not the Chicago skyline, as viewed from the other side of Lake Michigan, was in fact a mirage or not. And that, of course, came as a result of seeing this news report in April of 2015.
This is from Joshua Nowicki, and what you're seeing here is a mirage. We typically would not be able to see this from the Lake Michigan shore. We talked about this last night. Conditions are right on the lake that we're actually seeing a mirage of the Chicago skyline. Very interesting here. Here's what's happening. This is a good example of a superior mirage. So Joshua was on the Lake Michigan shore. He was looking towards the west, and Chicago's beyond the horizon. Should not be able to see it. However, with the right conditions, we have an inversion. We have cold air near the cold lake water and some relatively warmer air above it. This will bend the image of that skyline back towards the viewer. And so typically we would not be able to see this. This image would be viewable from much, much higher in the sky, up in space. But instead, we're able to see it on the Lake Michigan shore.
Now, when I first saw that, I immediately, just looking at the picture, I'm like, there is no way that is a mirage. And Rick was saying, definitely not, that he lived in that area his whole life, and he actually got in trouble in school for saying that he could see Chicago from the other side of Lake Michigan. And because that goes against what we're told about the ball. You can't see over the curve, you know. So because Joshua Nowicki was able to see the Chicago skyline from the state park that he was in, and by the way, he was at about, I believe the elevation was about 200 feet. And he was somewhere in the vicinity of about 53 miles away, according to the Channel 57 news report. And depending on where he was in the park, looking toward the west, he was looking on a heading of about 260 degrees to the west. I bought the Nikon Coolpix P900 specifically for the purpose of doing that test. Wasn't able to do it when I wanted to back in 2015, so I started doing some other things with that camera, which I'll show you in this video also. I mean, you have to believe that this entire city was thrown up into the sky and perfectly symmetrical, straight up and down, clean lines and all that stuff.
Here on the shores of Lake Michigan at Warren Dunes State Park, just 50 miles towards our west is Chicago. However, we can't see the skyline, at least from this vantage point.
So I met up with my friend Rick Hummer, and we recreated one of the experiments that got many people investigating flat Earth.
Rick, what are you trying to prove to people?
I'm not proving anything. The water does it on its own. By the way, we are literally standing right where Rob, Skiba, and I stood.
42 times 42
when we did our
eight.
test.
Whoa.
What I was looking at couldn't be dismissed. This ability to use high zoom cameras to see things at great distances was one of the major convincing points of the flat Earth argument. The official math given for the Earth's curvature is 8 inches per mile squared, and when people can zoom in on objects that are supposedly hundreds or thousands of feet below the curve, this creates some major questions. Thousands of recordings began surfacing online as people began to bring back ships and other objects from over the horizon. Using special cameras like the Nikon Coolpix P1000, rigging them to view in infrared, which cut through atmospheric distortions and allowed people to see even further than science would have us to believe is possible.
I do have a rare view of Milwaukee for you. It comes from the other side of Lake Michigan. Now check out this picture. It's of the city lights that were taken last Thursday night in Muskegon, Michigan, some 70 miles away from Milwaukee. So why does Milwaukee look so close? Well, scientists have a name for it, but it's best explained as simply a mirage.
13,458 was the elevation for the distant mountain range. And from this other place right here, which is at 2820, and just to confirm, yep, 9251 and change, so 9252, let's just say, round it up. That's the altitude of the photographer. So we go to, let's just go ahead and copy that. Go to the Earth curve calculator here. Everybody likes to use height of the observer, 9251.969, and the distance at 440 kilometers away. Let's do this as kilometers and miles. 273.403. 273.403. So, what is supposed to be hidden according to this? The horizon's at 117.799969 miles away, according to this. If you're here, this is at that altitude, your horizon is going to be at 117.8 miles away, and the target over here should be 16,140.1805 below your ability to see it. So let's do something else here. We'll use a little calculator here and see what the difference is. 16,140.1805. Subtract the height of the mountain, which was again 13,458.005. So if I'm understanding this correctly, then the top of that mountain range should be 2,682.1755 feet below the curvature. In other words, about a half mile below the ability of the observer to see it.
In an age of digital manipulation, it became important for me to witness the curvature with my own eyes. Science is observable, repeatable, and testable, right? Unfortunately, I still have yet to see the curvature with my own eyes, perhaps because of my own visual limitation or lack of altitude. What about from planes or from a higher elevation? Growing up, I had flown numerous times from Asia to the USA, and I remember staring out the window on those long, cramped flights. The horizon always seemed to be at eye level, never sloping away. As I investigated, I realized that outside of footage from government agencies and people directly involved in those operations like astronauts, it's pretty hard to find somebody who's seen the curvature with their own eyes. What we do see is video distorted with something called a fisheye lens, which makes the horizon wildly fluctuate between concave and convex. High-altitude balloon footage without such lenses began to reveal that at heights of 120,000 feet plus, no curvature was visible.
Crazy, crazy, crazy high.
There we are. Ladies and gentlemen, 70,000 feet.
Felix Baumgartner was 50,000 feet higher than you were.
Felix Baumgartner is going to get his heart broken over the curvature of the Earth.
Oh, how I can't wait to see the curve. Couldn't see it from mountains. Couldn't see it from plains. Now at 128,100 feet, this balloon ride will give me what I want. What? It's flat?
Houston, cut to outer fisheye lens camera ASAP.
I've been catfished. False advertising.
Curvature relationship expert Neil deGrasse Tyson comments on the relationship.
With a really wide-angle lens, which curves horizontal lines. So in the photo, you see this curvature of Earth's surface. Wow, he's in space. Look at that. No, he's not. At that height, you don't see the curvature of the Earth.
Perhaps you can understand why this may draw people to the conclusion that the Earth is flat, especially if they have rejected imagery from government agencies. So what about the footage from orbit, which shows a very curved Earth? This brings us to an important piece of the flat Earth pie. The conspiracies that build up to the big quote-unquote lie. I spoke with Mark Sargent about what conspiracies people would need to start with.
What are the most necessary conspiracies to buy into or to believe is factual before somebody is even ready for flat Earth?
Don't even bring up flat Earth to somebody until you check out how they are with the space program.
So let's start with the Apollo program. Could NASA have faked the moon landing? What are some of the inconsistencies in the narrative that would lead people to disbelief?
Apollo. In fact, it's a litmus test for us.
The moon landing is one of the most propagandized achievements of any nation. I mean, we just passed the 50th anniversary of the program. However, there are some interesting points of skepticism I have come to as I investigated the topic. Even if you believe we went to the moon, you must agree that if any deceptive practices can be found within the Apollo program, or any programs for that matter, then NASA is not trustworthy. Let's start with Apollo 7. As I was reviewing official footage of the mission, I noticed something I had not heard anyone speak on before. The view of the Earth is incredibly curved. Conspicuously curved. The supposed orbiting height was 140 to 183 miles above Earth. The ISS allegedly orbits at 254 miles up. Let's compare the footage. Things that make you go, One point towards NASA being a bit deceptive. Let's move on to what the astronauts saw in space, because there seems to be some disagreement between them.
When you looked up at the sky, could you actually see the stars and the solar corona in spite of the glare?
We were never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon.
Are stars visible in space? The Apollo astronauts didn't see any.
I don't recall during the period of time that we were photographing the solar corona what stars we could see. I don't remember seeing any.
Just look at how Neil Armstrong reacts to Michael Collins when he, out of hand, answers the question about stars.
I don't remember seeing any.
The entire duration of the moon landing, he was in the spacecraft above, but he doesn't remember seeing any stars.
I don't remember seeing any.
But those on the ISS somehow did.
From Mark Cameron. This is from Mark Cameron.
Whilst in space, have you ever looked away from Earth into the black void?
Because you can see, because you can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
You know, and pretty much all the time you can see the stars.
The sky is deep black when viewed from the moon, as it is when viewed from cislunar space, the space between the Earth and the moon. The Earth is the only visible object other than the sun that can be seen.
Space, and you're on the sun side of the orbit. The sunlight washes out all the starlight, so you can't see any stars, just like here on Earth.
There were none filmed in the spacewalks. Yet we are told by others they are very much visible, even in the light of the sun.
There's all the stars there, and the cool thing is about it, you can see it during the day.
Yeah, you can, and there's more than stars. You can see planets. You can see moons.
You see the gas Magellan clouds of the Milky Way galaxy. Pretty much all the time you can see the stars.
Then when you look out into deep space away from the sun, it's the darkest black you can imagine.
Which is it? They supposedly transmitted a live signal to the President of the USA through the ionosphere, the Van Allen radiation belt, 240,000 miles of vacuum, to a planet spinning at 1,000 miles per hour. And the signal was somehow clear and undelayed from the moon in 1969.
I'm talking to you by telephone from the Oval Room at the White House. And this certainly has to be the most historic telephone call ever made from the White House. And thank you very much, and I look forward, all of us look forward to seeing you on the Hornet on Thursday.
That must have been some pretty impressive technology, and yet we still have issues getting phone reception today. What kind of energy would it take to broadcast a signal that distance? What kind of power did they have on the lunar lander? They must be holding out on us. The telemetry data and even the original recordings were then destroyed because of budget issues.
I haven't seen anything that indicates the telemetry data is even in existence, and as I said, even if we had it, we don't have the machines to play it back.
Unfortunately, I'm afraid I can't really give you much of a clue as to where this data ended up and whether it still exists or not.
Though just in time for the 50th anniversary, a man seems to have found recordings from the Houston broadcast.
For $218, he bought a bunch of surplus government videotapes and made a discovery of his own, billed as the only surviving first-generation recording of the moonwalk. This is the footage on those tapes.
These are the clearest yet released of the moon landings. However, there's a lot of information that was apparently destroyed of the greatest monumental feat of mankind, according to NASA. How convenient that someone found some slightly clearer footage. However, let's talk about the actual recordings on the moon. I'm going to throw out these points in rapid fire because they have been covered by many documentaries exposing the Apollo programs. But this list should help you understand what intrigued so many flat earthers. The lunar lander left no crater after touchdown. A pristine environment after thousands of pounds of thrust was used to set the lander on the surface, except for the boots of the astronauts who very easily disturbed the moon's surface. When the footage is sped up, the astronauts look as if they're in normal gravity. Look at this astronaut in official footage of a spacewalk. It looks like stop motion. Shadows are cast in multiple directions in several photographs, which suggests multiple light sources. Crosshairs on official photographs lie behind the subjects, suggesting photo manipulation. The famous picture of Earth from the lunar surface, when brought into photo editing software, reveals a box around the planet, almost as if it was pasted into the image. The moon rock given to Holland by Neil Armstrong is a fake and was confirmed to be petrified wood. Now, why would they try to pull a quick one like that? Neil Armstrong was recorded purposely faking the curvature of the Earth using a window in the spacecraft by filming from the back of the module through a circular window and blocking out interior light, the dark of space wrapped around being simulated.
Very good. Well, we shut out the sun coming in some of the other windows into the spacecraft, so it's looking through the number one window, and there isn't any reflected light. We only have one window that has a view of the Earth, and it's filled up with the TV camera.
Why was this necessary? Could they have simply been in the high upper atmosphere? Faking the footage could have been justified because of the arms race between the United States and Russia, but also the enormous amount of tax money that is continually poured into the space program. They were spending roughly $58 million a day, according to inflation, since 1969. The technology they used to get to the moon is destroyed, and they cannot replicate it. Which is why we have not been back to the moon since 1972.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
No other country has performed a manned mission to the lunar surface. And in nearly 50 years, we never thought to set up a camera pointed from the moon to the Earth, like the ISS footage we can watch on YouTube live, if it's real, that is. which would have been cool.
If they absolutely believe that the Americans 100% went to the moon, they're usually American anyway, which is, rah, rah, wave the flag, go team. I get that. It's amazing to me watching people from other countries believe in the Americans. And I've questioned, it's like, why did you believe the Americans? Why are you believe the Americans? Whenever they tell you something like that. So I went to the moon because it was on TV. Apparently that's the reason. That's the only thing you need to do to get into, because if you can get past that, because it's big, it's a really big conspiracy with a lot of people involved, even though most of them don't know what's happening, a lot of money involved, and it's been going on since 1958, then you can get into flat Earth. Because they're very, very related. Very, very related. In fact, it's one of our favorite things that we go after. It's like, okay, well, who's the target? You got to go after somebody. Well, NASA, because they're the ones that are faking space.
Many people who have come to question the Apollo missions did not just lose faith in NASA because of one inconsistency, but rather a culmination of deceptive topics. This act of the Apollo mission is the start of a secular religion, and as I watched the enormous amount of propaganda being pushed since the 50th anniversary, I'm starting to feel as if the louder they shout, "Yes, we went," the less people will question them on the narrative, which does have some pretty interesting inconsistencies.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Why has nobody been to the moon in such a long time?
That's not an 8-year-old's question. That's my question. I want to know, but I think I know. Because we didn't go there. We didn't go there. We didn't go there. And that's the way it happened.
No, this is a secret I've been keeping for almost half a century. On July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong and I pulled off humanity's first extraterrestrial prank.
Security is going to be a very big factor with respect to
he doesn't know yet?
Space.
Don't they brief these guys on this stuff?
At some point in the future, we're going to look back and say, how did we do it without space?
It was kind of easy. Film set, good PR, grainy footage.
The future of American space.
I'm going to be so busted when he finds out. I hope I'm not saying this stuff out loud.
Step to secure America's future in space by reviving the National Space Council.
Kind of like my old D&D club. I always did make a good warlock.
Today's announcement sends a clear signal to the world that we are restoring America's proud legacy of leadership in space.
He does know the Russians found out. It was a prank, right? Yeesh. Let's move on to some suspicious modern space footage from the ISS.
And it's not just the Apollo program, because once you can do the Apollo program, in fact, I ran into somebody a couple of years ago, and I loved it. He was on air, and he goes, "Well, just because the Apollo is fake doesn't mean like the ISS is." And I go, "So you don't believe in Apollo?" He goes, "No, I probably don't." I go, "But you believe in the ISS?" "Yes, I do." I go, "Because they would make one real and one fake." It's the first law of crime, is that if you're gonna steal one thing, you might as well steal everything, because the punishment's going to be the same if you get caught. So there's no reason to make anything else real.
The plan that NASA has is to build a rocket called SLS, which is a heavy lift rocket. It's something that is much bigger than what we have today, and it will be able to launch the Orion capsule with humans on board, as well as landers or other components to destinations beyond Earth orbit. Right now, we only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go.
Only 536 people have ever been to space. That is 0.0000067% of the living human population have been high enough to see curvature.
Of those, only 24 people have ever been beyond low Earth orbit, supposedly.
And this new system that we're building is going to allow us to go beyond and hopefully take humans into the solar system to explore. So the moon, Mars, asteroids, there's a lot of destinations that we could go to, and we're building these building block components in order to allow us to do that eventually.
The technologies that we're testing out on space station are definitely helping us with our goals of going beyond low Earth orbit. So we have a really robust exploration program.
If only 536 people have been to space and seen the curvature with their own eyes, then are these relatively few individuals trustworthy? We're going to review some footage of the 0.0000067 people who are the only humans to witness curvature with their own eyes. And this is a fact. Anyone else would have had to reference the imagery and video produced by these people and their agencies. The issue is recordings like this one, where this astronaut's hair seems permed.
See the hair? See the hair?
Why isn't it flowing all over the place in the absence of gravity? Or this moment here, where a cable is grabbed to stabilize a spinning astronaut. It almost looked invisible. Your eyes aren't fooling you, even though they wanted them to. Look closely. This guy's shirt displays a point caught on what could be a wire. Which brings me into another conspiracy of my own discovery. Red shirt guy's name is Chris Hadfield, and as I was reviewing footage on YouTube investigating topics, most videos would feature an ad from him teaching space exploration. On most of the Flat Earth videos from people that are actually proponents, whenever you click the video, it comes up with a master class from Chris Hadfield for NASA and astronauts in space. Check this out.
To fly a rocket ship, you need to be an optimist.
What in the world, Chris Hadfield?
No astronaut launches for space with their fingers crossed.
I guess
that's not how we deal with risk.
Fighting the flat earthers in their own way.
What I learned from 21 years as an astronaut is that
the 5-second advertisement that you have to watch at the beginning of it.
I know what you're going to say.
Is the Chris Hadfield Astronaut Masterclass.
Yep.
Is that a conspiracy in itself? Just the fact that it's showing up on every flat earther video out there, this propaganda for the astronaut program.
Right. And it's going to backfire on them. So do I think a programmer went in there and said, yeah, you know what we should probably do? Let's take a dig and recommend the masterclass to anybody that does a flat earth video? Yeah, of course it is. Watching Chris Hadfield, well, the first time I saw that, and people get enraged when it's like, oh, Hadfield. I mean, first off, I guarantee everything on that blackboard he had nothing to do with. He's just holding a piece of chalk. Blackboard's filled with equations. It's like, no, Chris Hadfield, the Canadian astronaut. In fact, why is he even on? Why is it out of all the people? What? Because he plays the guitar. Why are you using him?
The powers that be were placing this guitar-playing astronaut's masterclass in front of any video explaining flat Earth concepts. Check out his concert with no latency.
Welcome to the cupola. Ready to play a little music?
Indeed. Your scenery looks a little nicer than ours. Have you got everything you need? Do you have your trusty floating guitar pick with you? Excellent. Gleeks, are you guys ready to do this? Yeah! Chris, ready to go?
Yes, Ed, I'm ready.
Okay.
Let's do this.
Whatever.
There wasn't really much of him addressing modern conspiracies against the astronaut program. Why do you think that is?
He can't bring it up. He can't bring up the topic. It is the astronauts are just actors. That's all they are, and they're not even good actors. And when it comes to the actual science, the actual physics, which we've been pointing out, there's so many things that are wrong with it. There's so many things, like, for example, all I'd have to do if I was going to talk to him, if I ever get the chance, I didn't do it with Terry Virts when I had a chance to talk to him on Good Morning Britain, but when it comes to anybody else at this point, I'm just going to ask him one question, which is, tell me how a spacesuit works. I dedicated a clue to this, which was called the lost nail, which is like, look, the spacesuit cannot work the way it's advertised. The physics aren't there, which is a law of thermodynamics, not a guideline, a law, which says pressure needs a container. If it's a hard container, then it's under pressure, hence the name, contents under pressure. If it's a soft container, it goes rigid. And there's nothing you can do to stop that. There is no physics, imaginary, magical force you can do this. And even if you could convince me, because it should, what I'm saying is the suit should turn into a basketball. I was going to grab a basketball back there, but what I'm saying is a basketball with only a few pounds of pressure on the inside becomes very, very tight. And it's got layers. It's got a bladder layer and a weave layer and finally a leather layer and maybe a couple others depending on what kind of ball it is. You cannot press on this thing, and you can't fold it, you can't bend it. It's absolutely rigid. So why doesn't a spacesuit become a basketball? Why doesn't this happen? And no one will answer this for me. This is one of those questions I threw out there at people, which is the spacesuit is absolutely cannot do what they say it is. And even if you could convince me today, in 2019, that a spacesuit with microprocessor technology can maybe balance out something, and it's like, I go, fine, then tell me how they did it in 1969 with analog technology, with nothing, with battery technology. In fact, what was in that backpack? Tell me what magical thing is in that backpack that can stop the vacuum of space. I have talked to vacuum experts over and over again, and they said the power of vacuum is absolutely irresistible. Gravity can't even begin. And I'll give you a quick thing, and I know you got other questions, which is, let's say there was a second floor to this building right now, and you made it into a vacuum chamber, and you put a cork on the ceiling, and you popped it. What do you think is going to happen? It's instantly going to equalize. You're going to black out and maybe die. Right? Depending on how big the chamber is up there. And you say, what's the point? My point is that we're on Earth, right? Why didn't the gravity keep the air from rushing up there? And they say, well, because why? Because tell me exactly why. Because that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that, and that vacuum chamber isn't even close to what the vacuum of space supposedly is. So tell me how the vacuum of space doesn't rip the entire atmosphere off violently, instantly. And no one has ever answered that. They say, well, again, they just say, well, it is. The gravity is strong. That's got to be. Otherwise, we'd be dead. And I say, or it's a pressurized enclosed system. And they say, well, it can't be. And then we keep going back to, because NASA said so. And I go, okay, then you're in the American military. And then it just snowballs from there.
Look closely. Guy in background looks like he is wearing a harness. Augmented reality is also a supposed deception on the ISS. This guy is literally grabbing nothing and putting it away. Nothing is being grabbed, and he's putting it out of shot. What? I'm just going to start ringing the bell indiscriminately. That guy in the background is in front of a blue screen in what looks like a set to fake space footage. Looks like this same astronaut on the ISS playing with water. Weird. Look at the same objects around him, but different backgrounds. Metal pole and wire here, and a metal pole and wire here. This astronaut is playing with something out of a video game.
So what about astronauts?
The space shots are actually shot in a swimming pool, and they are shot in a place that's called the NASA Neutral Buoyancy Lab.
NASA's Neutral Buoyancy Lab has a mock-up of the ISS in a swimming pool that some suggest is used to film spacewalks.
I was told my tax dollars were going to murdering monkeys in space. And now you're telling me they're just faking it in a jacuzzi?
Bubble. Bubble. Bubble.
Bubble.
Bubbles. Bubble. 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 Bubbles. Look, the point being is if there is reasonable discrepancies in the footage we get from the ISS, and there is some obvious deception going on when it comes to these invisible wires and these blue screen sets. Glitchy neck and glitchy necklace.
What in the world is this glitch?
Not to mention the spacewalks and the iffy footage that we get as a 24-hour feed from the ISS, then perhaps you can come to the understanding of why flat earthers don't trust a word out of their mouths. And you don't have to be a flat earther to distrust what these space agencies tell us. I mean, it seems a lot like propaganda. Alright, let's go back to the corkboard of conspiracies that build up to flat Earth. The space program? Covered. Of course, there are videos out there that break down the flaws in NASA's footage with more detail, but what I have shown will be enough to familiarize you with a flat earther's skepticism. The last time a photograph of the Earth was taken by a person was in 1972 on one of the Apollo missions. The issue with this is, of course, the issues with the Apollo missions. The other images that we commonly see are altered in photo editing software, compositing many satellite images together to make one whole. Of course, the occasional image will be put out supposedly from a far-orbiting satellite, but if flat earthers already distrust a lot of the stuff put out by these agencies, why buy a singular photo that's supposedly from hundreds of thousands of miles away from Earth? Meaning the vast majority of images of Earth that you have seen are not photographs. They're made by a guy using Photoshop, and this is a fact. Look at how different each official NASA image of Earth is.
In 2002, Blue Marble 2.0, NASA's Rob Simon made this. And it had wide appeal too. For example, it ended up as the default background on the iPhone. So the land layer here comes from
the Moderate Resolution Imaging Spectroradiometer aboard Terra.
They stashed the clouds for later, went onto the ocean. That came from an instrument that measures phytoplankton in the sea.
Where it was low, I colored it dark blue because they're low mostly in mid-oceans. And then where it was a little bit higher, it was like a little bit brighter green.
Then add the clouds back in.
It is photoshopped, but it's has to be.
Then
there was another layer to sort of simulate the atmosphere.
And then there's this little bright spot.
It's called the specular highlight. So it's the reflection of sunlight off of water.
Those are the pieces, but you can't just slap them all together.
It just didn't look realistic. It looks kind of flat, or the clouds are sort of too see-through. So I just hit Command Z a lot.
There's artistry to creating the world.
What I imagine it to be. Unfortunately, I'm not an astronaut. I've never been to space. I'm getting results that I like, but I think it's a little bit exaggerated. So I'm working on some techniques to try to tone it down a little bit.
False images of Earth. Check. Photoshopped because they have to be. Have you really seen a picture of where you live? Most flat earthers say we haven't. Satellites could possibly be held aloft by balloons, by the way. But I won't spend too much time on this. I have heard it thrown out there by a lot of flat earthers though. You might find it interesting to know that most world communications are through underwater sea cables and ground-based tower communication systems. Flat earthers also point out the large amount of indoctrination that begins at a young age involving maps and globes. These are not accurate representations, however, and even have warning labels stating this.
We don't teach evolution necessarily to children, but we do put a globe in the classroom. The globe is always there. In fact, I came up with something recently, which I said, think of it this way, especially in the United States, and I know other countries do this, which is you have a globe in the classroom and you also have an American flag up in the corner. And those two icons stay with you pretty much, let's just say through high school, 12 years. Well, think of the power of that. By the end of your 12 years, there's a lot of people in this country that join the military for various reasons, but a lot of it is because of the flag. It's there. I'm willing to fight for that icon that's up there. Well, right below it has been the globe for 12 years too. What's really the difference? A lot of people, they don't know why they're fighting for it. Only that they're fighting for it because it's there. It's always been there. It's like the flag. That's where you live. That's your stars and stripes. That's your home. Oh yeah, by the way, that's the globe. That's also your home, but it's bigger than your country. But it's the Earth, and that's your home. And people have this knee-jerk reaction always to it. Look, I was the same way. I like to tell people, and you probably have heard this before. When I clicked on my first flat Earth video, I literally had a visceral response to it. And remember, I'm a really open-minded guy. I've been in conspiracies for a number of years, and I literally got flushed. I was embarrassed to click on it. And I was in a house by myself with the windows put, the drapes pulled. And I was embarrassed to click on it. How is that even possible? Look, if you're into tech at all, there's a lot of weird, freaky stuff on the internet, right? None of it embarrassed me. Of course, there's a couple like, whoa, that's weird. But not like this, to where I was literally physically flushed. It was like my body was reacting to it. It's like, why would it react to me? It was like it was trying to stop me from clicking on flat Earth. And I noticed it to where it's going, wait a minute, what's going on here? And then it got easier and easier.
One last major conspiracy before we move on. The Antarctic Treaty. This particular treaty ties to the flat Earth model because instead of being a continent in the southern hemisphere, Antarctica is instead believed to be the wall of ice that encompasses the other continents, with the North Pole being in the center. This treaty is one of the longest standing of its kind and involves 45 nations. I can't go into a lot of detail because it would be a whole film on its own, but just suffice it to say, Nazis and post-World War II expeditions got it locked down save for controlled scientific purposes. And while most of these nations disagree on stuff, no one messes with the Antarctic Treaty, meaning it is very difficult to go and explore without only going to controlled areas. The people I have met are not part of the Flat Earth Society, a group which puts out erroneous and unsupportable positions.
None of us belong to the Flat Earth Society. Media, please take note of that. All right, we didn't run one day and say, boy, I got to join some club or cult. I want to join something where everybody's going to hate me and make fun of me and call me names for the rest of my life. Yeah, where do I sign up? We don't all agree, and there are several different models to choose from. The one thing we do all agree on, though, is that the Earth is not a spinning ball. And for the most part, I would say this is a leaderless movement of independent researchers. Now, there are some people who want to take credit. I started this movement and blah, blah, blah. They have their own ego to work out, issues. But this is a leaderless movement. There's just people waking up all over the world just doing their own research. Therefore, you need to judge each of us on our own merits based on our own work. Don't judge me based on something Eric Dubay or Mark Sargent or Jaron Campanella or Bob Nodella or anybody else says. Likewise, don't judge them based on anything that I say, right? Judge each of us on the merits of our own work. Stop going to the Flat Earth Society and cherry-picking the most ridiculous claims they make and associating them with us as if that's what we believe. Most of us consider that website to be either controlled opposition or a joke. I can't tell you how many media news outlets, Christian and otherwise, that I've seen, the first thing they do is go to the Flat Earth Society and look for the most ridiculous thing they have on that website and then attach that to me or others.
This new breed of flat Earth exists because they set out to debunk the theory and found that the model we are presented with as absolute fact can be challenged with certain observations and questions, not to mention those enforcing the globular spinning Earth heliocentric Big Bang model has been caught in the aforementioned deceptions. Before I mention these proofs of flat Earth, or rather the questions that can lead someone to a flat Earth conclusion, I want to make a statement. You do not need to be a flat earther to be a skeptic of government agencies, secular scientists presenting theories, or even what is taught in classrooms. You may be the farthest thing from the term flat earther. But like many of the people who I've spoken with on the topic, I encourage you to do your own research.
More people need to get out there and question why they believe what they believe. Just get out there and start doing tests for yourself, because when you see it for yourself, that's a game changer.
The point of this film is to present the journey I went on to get into the mind of a flat earther, to share the things that have convinced so many, and to present an undissenting voice before the true reason for becoming a flat earther is drowned out by those too incredulous to lend an ear, and those too trusting of men in lab coats to challenge groupthink and entertain a thought. Truth is not afraid of being challenged, and in my book, if any agency or person is caught in a lie, everything else they present as fact should be subject to skepticism. However, we are entering an age where digital manipulation makes deception all the more powerful. If we are being lied to about space programs, or about anything for that matter, somebody with access to the technology and the funding agencies like NASA have will very easily be able to make it look 100% real, and that's the danger. So that's why talking about this now is so important, when the footage is still available, before all traces of a dissenting voice are removed from the internet and can't be found in search results. Hopefully you see the value in what I'm talking about. Alright, let's get into some flat earth proofs that I've learned as I investigated this topic.
You have to kind of avoid the heliocentric traps in the heliocentric model, because the flat earth is not the heliocentric model. It is completely different. The stars are close, obviously the sun is close. They could ask about Eratosthenes, and of course that also has the same explanation. It will work with the sun 93 million miles away, but it'll also work with the sun close and local. And even Neil deGrasse Tyson admitted that, which blew me away.
This is the model you may have seen talked about on the news, but I'm going to cut to the chase. They don't know exactly what it looks like. To make truth claims is just as slippery of a slope as blindly buying into any other theory. They do, however, dispute that we are on a globe, hurling through space, spinning 1,000 miles an hour, able to measure the curvature, and several other fascinating positions I will rattle off just to get you thinking. Generally, flat earth proofs can be put into two baskets. Either it is only possible on a flat plane, or it is possible in both the heliocentric and flat earth models. An example is the Eratosthenes experiment, which measured the shadows cast by the sun at two separate locations at the same time. The philosopher then deduced how far away and large the sun is. However, this experiment, commonly used to justify the heliocentric model, could work just as well mathematically if the sun was close and small. Of course, we need to first discuss the things above us, as most arguments for a globular Earth consist of referencing things in the sky, not what we are actually standing on. How come the sun sets if it's just circling above us? What about the galaxy and stars? How did these fit into the flat Earth model? Here is what I have picked up. These are called crepuscular rays, which are angled rays that seem to converge just above the clouds. Flat earthers say this makes the sun appear much closer than we are told. If the sun is millions of miles away, the light should be parallel. The common explanation is a perspective illusion, though it is interesting when you see footage like this, like when the sun seems to be traveling between cloud formations. Interesting. Doesn't quite look so far away. Though perspective is factored into both models, crepuscular rays could be formed with a close or far away sun. Next is eclipses. Officially, the sun is 400 times the diameter of the moon, but it is also 400 times farther away from us. What an amazing coincidence that allows eclipses to happen. Though the odds of this positioning naturally are incredible. Flat earthers use the fact that the moon's shadow, which passes over the Earth during eclipses, is roughly 100 miles wide. Shadows are generally never smaller than the object casting it, yet the exception is the moon during eclipses. The sun setting can be explained by the vanishing point of perspective combined with the magnifying effect of the atmosphere. Here is a fascinating experiment that demonstrates a sun setting when it is merely being pulled farther away on a flat surface.
If the atmosphere, especially over water, is made up of zillions and zillions of tiny convex drops of water, then collectively perhaps they all combine to make one big convex lens, in which case it would act like a magnifying glass. We've all seen pictures of, a pencil or something in a glass of water, and how not only does refraction bend the image downward, it also magnifies it.
The science is the same of that of a lens. Here's a simple example. The atmosphere really is acting like a lens.
Yes.
Fascinating. Seasons could be explained by the sun transitioning between tropics over the plane of the Earth. When circling the center tighter, we have summer in the Tropic of Cancer. When in a wider circuit, then there is summer in the Tropic of Capricorn. Okay, let's talk about the rotation of the Earth and see if there are any arguments against the Earth spinning at 1,000 miles per hour. Planes do not account for the rotation of the Earth in their speed or flight paths. A plane traveling opposite to the supposed rotation, traveling the same distance as a plane flying with the rotation, will arrive at exactly the same time. Planes traveling north or south do not reckon the 1,000 mile per hour shift of the Earth under their flight path. Yet snipers are said to have to take the Coriolis effect into account when making long-distance shots. Yet a hot air balloon can take off in the air for several hours and land in the exact same position, even though the Earth is allegedly spinning at over 1,000 miles per hour with no effect. So in a fraction of a second, the Earth's spin allegedly affects bullets, but not planes or hot air balloons. Planes are traveling much slower than a bullet. How could the rotation of the Earth not have any effect on travel? Airline flight paths make sense on a flat Earth model just as much as they do on a globe. Planes travel in relatively straight lines on a flat Earth map. Circumnavigation can also be explained by simply traveling around magnetic north. Apparently, there are no peer-reviewed experiments that actually measure the rotation of the Earth, while the opposite conclusion can be reached by experiments like the Michelson-Morley experiment, which found no significant difference between the speed of light in the direction of movement through the presumed aether and the speed at right angles. This indicates to flat earthers that there is no measurable rotation to the Earth.
So, what did Michelson and Morley actually get? So there are only two conclusions that one could have here. Number one, the Earth's not moving. The other alternative is that ether doesn't exist.
Plumes of smoke that go into the high upper atmosphere are unaffected by the rotation of the Earth. This doesn't make a lot of sense when you consider the air at high altitudes must cover a larger distance to remain unaffected by the rotation, yet on days with little to no wind, the smoke remains undisturbed rather than falling behind. According to flat earthers, this could only be possible if the Earth was not moving. What about some recent experiments? Cameras with high zoom capability are able to see objects which are supposed to be hidden by the curvature. I spoke on this a bit earlier, but this really is one of the biggest arguments for flat Earth. When objects are filmed over large bodies of water, the curvature of the Earth should be evident due to the water supposedly reflecting the gravitational pull of the Earth equally across its surface. However, extreme distances are being viewed over the flat level of water, and objects that vanish to our eyesight due to perspective are brought back into view with the right equipment. This next point I found extremely interesting. Official documentation claiming the Earth is flat, and that mathematical equations used in aeronautics assume a flat, non-rotating Earth. Check these out. This is a CIA document sourced from the Russians, and it's titled Dissertations Defended in the Scientific Council of the Institute of Physics of the Earth. In the document, it mentions a near sun and a formula that is derived on the assumption of a flat Earth. This United States Army document from the Army Research Laboratory on the propagation of electromagnetic fields over flat Earth mentions transmitters placed on the surface of a flat, idealized Earth. In one of its figures, it also mentions flat Earth. In another Army Research Laboratory document, it depicts a diagram showing a flat Earth, crepuscular rays that we mentioned earlier, and a near and localized sun. Here's another document on projectile flight dynamics, and the equations in the document assume a flat Earth. Here's a NASA document on the derivation and definition of a linear aircraft model. Introduction. This report details the development of the linear model of rigid aircraft of constant mass flying over a flat, non-rotating Earth. NASA document on the SR-71 Blackbird and its top speed of 2,193 miles per hour. Maneuvers depending on a non-turbulent atmosphere and a non-rotating Earth. Federal Aviation Administration document. Equations of motion assuming a flat, non-rotating Earth. Another NASA document. A rigid aircraft flying in a stationary atmosphere over a flat, non-rotating Earth. An aircraft model for the AIAA Controlled Design Challenge. Flight dynamics of a rigid aircraft flying in a stationary atmosphere over a flat, non-rotating Earth. NASA Technical Paper 1285, Flat, Non-Rotating Earth. A NASA Georgia Tech project in conjunction with the U.S. Air Force. A model frequently used is that of a flat, non-rotating Earth. You might argue that some of these documents are taken out of context, but you have to admit that a lot of these flight calculations are based on a flat, non-rotating Earth because they come right out and say it. For agencies that denigrate flat earthers, they sure to use the terminology a lot in their paperwork. Gravity is another major question for flat earthers, yet they point out it remains only a theory, one of which renowned scientists will admit we know nothing about, to the extent that terms like dark matter and dark energy are created to explain the lack of mass required to create the interactions we can observe.
We've found a problem so great that it was brushed under the carpet for many a decade. And this is the fact that galaxies spin too fast. In fact, 10 times too fast. By rights, the galaxy should fly apart. Therefore, scientists said that we have to have dark matter, a halo of matter that surrounds the galaxy and holds the galaxy together.
And what have they discovered? Absolutely nothing. Zilch. What is a little bit perturbing is that after 50 years we still haven't found what the dark matter is. But on the other hand, that doesn't mean they're not there, it just means they're harder to find than we thought.
We look out in the universe and 85% of all the gravity that's out there has some mysterious unknown source.
So everything we know about the universe, what we're made of, galaxies, stars, planets, that's all right here. So according to this chart, we are 96% stupid in the universe. You're happy about that, apparently. I don't know what that means, you know. Are you applauding my honesty? Are you applauding, you're celebrating the stupidity of our species?
Some counter-explanations bring up electromagnetism and density and buoyancy to explain what we are able to see. High-altitude balloon footage shows no curvature, and the horizon always raises to eye level. And everyday people can do these experiments if they have the right equipment. And they don't have to trust in the photos and images given to them by untrustworthy organizations. Before I move on, I have to touch on the film Behind the Curve. It has grown massively popular and has led a lot of people into investigating Flat Earth. However, at the end, the director depicted Jaron as debunking the Flat Earth. This was Mark's explanation.
Oh, Jaron botched the experiment entirely. In fact, I felt bad for Jaron, and Jaron has apologized to everybody. You know, he's got 150,000 subs, and he had to apologize a lot because, and it was mostly his fault. But the thing was, the director knew what he had done, the mistakes he had made, and took advantage of it anyway. And that was, a lot of people don't know, they did the experiment twice, on months apart from each other. The first time, well, Jaron just had the laser on too long and melted in the condenser. And they didn't show that they didn't talk about that in the documentary, which was amazing. But the second time, he goes back to the same spot. And what I didn't know until later, and Jaron was really quick to apologize and say, look, before you ever go live on camera, you really should, do it. That's why we call them dry runs. You never go live the first time without a dry run. Even your best award shows still do a dry run. People think, oh, it's spontaneous. And it's like, no, it's absolutely rehearsed. He didn't even have line of sight. And I knew this because later he actually went back months later and went back to the site during the daytime for the first time. It's like, wait, not only did you do it for the first time live there at night, but you weren't even at the site ever before then? You never even walked around the site beforehand? And because he just thought, oh, well, on Google Maps, it looks straight, and and the road looks straight. And so he was getting so much hell that he drove out there and then lined up the shot. He's going, huh, I never had line of sight to begin with. It's like, oh, dude, you're killing me.
At least according to what I've heard, David Weiss, brought it up to him at the live premiere in New York and said, hey, is that, did you misrepresent the experiment at the end? And he said, oh, yeah, well, we kind of, edited. And so, I mean, they admit it, what they did.
This is what Rick had to say.
I don't think it did a whole lot of negative to the flat earth. I mean, it wasn't a real documentary. It's not real science here that they were doing. It was more about the people of the flat earth movement or the awakening or whatever you want to call it. I know they edited some of Jaron's stuff. They cut it up and they didn't represent, what was going on with him factually. They did mess it up. Whether they did that on purpose or not, I don't know. But that's one of the things that I do know that they did. They weren't honest about some of that. And of course they did the whole love story thing. So it wasn't a true documentary about flat earth research, about flat earth knowledge, about flat earth wisdom, about the scriptures. That's not what it was. So it did raise a lot of awareness. And I know a lot of people personally that have actually come up to me and said, I saw you on Netflix. And, they're not going, and you're crazy. Not all of them are saying that afterwards, so that's a good thing.
Flat earthers don't know what's past the edge, which is the ice wall, because nobody is allowed to investigate further inland in Antarctic regions. They don't believe that, just like in the voyage of the Dawn Treader, a ship can go over the edge of a giant waterfall cascading into the abyss. That's crazy.
I don't know why they always try and show this flat disk in outer space. We don't believe in outer space. We believe everything's inside the firmament.
What they do believe is what they can observe. And what they don't believe are some models that are presented as absolute truth. There are dozens of more arguments for flat Earth. But for the most part, these are the most common.
Look, don't take my word for it. This is what I think. Do your own research, ask questions, figure it out for yourself. And people started coming out with all sorts of stuff. D. Marble goes on a plane with a spirit level, and Jaron goes out to a beach with a laser, and everybody goes to a beach with cameras. Even if like the 5 questions I give to scientists today are not the same ones I would have given to them 3 years ago. Long distance photography, versions of that, gravity versus the vacuum of space, the eclipse shadow, which is the wrong size for the moon, the moon temperature, which is just bizarre still to this day, and then the Van Allen radiation belt problem. But had I used those in the clues, I don't think it would have resonated as much. Look, these things all point to the same thing, which is it's flat, it's enclosed, and it was built by a higher power than you, and definitely not us.
Oh, what are the top 5 flat earth proofs? Okay, yeah, this is a good one. We're seeing farther than we should. Water planes out when it should never plane out. There should always be a measurable curve. You should never have a flat lake. There is lack of spherical evidence or spherical proofs. High altitude imagery, prospectively, the non-fisheye lens or the lenses that are not quite a fisheye or whatever, or even some of the infrared, is showing we are seeing much further, and the horizon line stays at eye level. Oh, I'm going to say scriptures, the Bible.
Recently, a judge presiding over a civil court case awarded a flat earther named Zen Garcia a ruling in favor of Zen against someone trying to debunk the flat earth. And here's the documentation. Zen had offered a $15,000 reward to somebody that could demonstrate measurable curvature, and the guy failed, and once again, it was ruled in favor of the flat earther. This is in an actual court. What? Wow. Flat earthers are not saying they know how everything works, or even what it looks like, but they can all agree on one thing. the Earth is not as we have been told, that no curvature or motion is measurable, and that government agencies showing pictures of a planet are not to be trusted. Let's move on to my final segment, Flat Earth and the Bible. For the conspiracy-minded among you, I found this interesting. Revelation 13:18. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. 666. The following is some numerology taken from spherical Earth figures. The speed of the Earth's orbit is apparently 66,600 miles per hour. The curvature in 1 mile squared is 0.666 feet. The Earth is on a 66.6 degree tilt. Earth's axis of rotation and its plane of orbit around the Sun is 66.6 degrees. The polar circles, located near the poles of the Earth, are at 66 degrees in the north and south latitudes. No matter how you look at it, the dreaded number 666 is all over the heliocentric globe model. But let's talk about what the Bible actually says regarding the nature of the Earth. As a Christian, this is an important topic to me, because much of mainstream secular science presents information that is meant to discredit the Bible. The Big Bang, evolution, old Earth, carbon dating, all of which are challenged often by creationist ministries seeking to prove the scriptures true with their own research. Great insights have come out that debunk these theories and prove things like a worldwide flood and the unverified nature of macroevolution, lending to the credence of a creator and the Word of God. However, are we letting mainstream secular science get a pass when it comes to cosmology? Because if you are a Christian that believes in a literal creation account in the book of Genesis, then you already disagree with a vast majority of what modern secular scientists teach as absolute truths. For example, when it comes to cosmology, if the sun, moon, and stars were created on day 4 of creation, and not millions and billions of years before the planet Earth, then you already agree more with a flat earther than you do secular science. There are so many areas that people that believe in the validity of the Word of God will challenge these supposed theories like evolution, and yet they give a pass to the cosmological worldview that justifies these underlying theories just because we've seen a picture from space. But then again, have we? Which is why so many flat earthers are also Bible believers. I called up Nate Wolf, who is a pastor that was fired for his belief in the flat earth, to speak to this topic. And how did you become a flat earther?
Just a little over 2 years ago, I had been in full-time ministry up to that point about 25 years. I was working with the congregation in Ohio, in the Toledo area. And I had been asked to speak at a summer Wednesday night series up in Michigan for a church. And so I drew the topic of the flood. And so I was on YouTube, and I ended up finishing up 2 short videos on the flood. And then I noticed in the YouTube, side recommendations that there was an interesting thumbnail for a documentary that was called The Global Lie. And that piqued my interest, Jake, because that whole previous year, I had been doing a lot of thinking about Satan being, the God or ruler of this world, and the deception, the fact that Revelation 12:9 says that he deceives the whole world. And so I guess I had done some sermons along those lines at the church. And so this thumbnail, this title of The Global Lie really piqued my interest. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into when I clicked on that thumbnail and watched this video, of course, Global Lie by Celebrate Truth, Robbie Davidson. And just right off the bat, they were showing, scriptures and contrasting, the modern scientific beliefs about the earth and about the cosmos, and what Scripture actually says about creation. And so I watched the video, and it really just, I kind of felt like, what just happened? Like, what did I just see? Like, I need to dive into this a little more. And after I watched The Global Lie, now in the YouTube recommendations, I'm getting thumbnails for videos that have the phrase flat earth in them. And I'm going, flat earth? Like, what is that? You know, so I had a few hours, right, to kill, and my interest was piqued. And so I started down the rabbit hole. I can't remember exactly what were all the next videos, but I know there was some related to Mark Sargent's Flat Earth Clues. There were some ODD videos. There, you know, probably a few by Eric DeBay, Jeranism, those types. And I just went down that rabbit hole, and probably for a few days I felt, excuse the movie reference, but I felt like Neo, in the Matrix, where they plugged me in. And I'm just like, okay, I just learned jujitsu. Like, what's next, And my wife noticed that I was spending a lot of time in the evenings with my free time. She thought I was watching Netflix or something, right? Maybe I'm binging on Netflix, but no, it was flat Earth videos and Bible cosmology related videos. And so that's kind of how all of that started. And my wife, I finally had to break it to her, and she jumped in with me. And I think she was convinced even more quickly than I was. So
I had to talk to Rick Hummer as well when it came to Christianity and the Bible. He had some pretty miraculous confirmation whenever he first started looking into the topic. And it is why he is so involved in the movement today.
Immediately I knew, like within a couple months, like that I didn't have to question. I mean, I had lightning strike in front of my house as I found a folder. This folder, as a matter of fact, I grabbed this because I was going to share some things out of this later. But yeah, this folder shows up with my homework from 1984, and the very first thing that's on here that I wrote as an answer was, it was flat and lightning strikes in front of my house. There were no clouds in my sky that day, and to have lightning strike in front of you right after you get done saying, I've been asking God for confirmation about the shape of the earth. And then in my own writing from 1984, it says it was flat. At that point in time, how has it affected me? Well, I was all in. I was all in. I mean, there's no denying. I was all in. So yeah, I mean, this is now a mission, and I know it, and it's clear as anything that I've ever done in my life.
Is that ideas? What were the early ideas about the shape of the earth? In my own writing, it was flat.
Lightning. And lightning just struck as I said that.
Like I said, you can't write this stuff. Do you follow me? As I'm making this video, that happens.
Now, what was the one point where you just were like, okay, this proof or this concept is really what's switched me over?
I just couldn't shake Genesis 1. And I've always believed that, we see in Scripture, even in the New Testament, so many things are brought back to Genesis 1, whether you're talking about, male and female, husband and wife, the creation. And so I just kept coming back to Genesis 1, and particularly those middle verses there that talk about the firmament, and then verses 11 and following, which talk about the great lights, the sun, moon, and the stars. And when they were created, okay, so you have verses 9 and 10, you have the seas gathered together into one place, and the dry land, the earth, the eretz, appears. That's day 3. And it blew me away when I realized that the sun, moon, and stars were created on day 4. And God specifically, the Father specifically told us what the purpose of those celestial objects were. No mention of planets. I was like, wait a second, that's a head scratcher. All we have is sun, moon, and stars. And of course, the signs, seasons, or the Moedim, days and years. And then, of course, all of those objects were said to give light on the earth. And so that was really the clincher for me, was I just could not shake Genesis 1 and how it was so vastly different from the heliocentric, solar system, galaxy.
Are they putting their faith behind NASA, or have they been testing all things and testing the spirit behind these things? There's 200 verses that I know of in the Bible. And could there be more? Quite possibly, there very well could be.
All right, so I am here interviewing Robbie Davidson of the Flat Earth International Conferences and, of course, Celebrate Truth, the YouTube channel that puts out a lot of media that talks about the Flat Earth topic. And I had some very specific questions to ask Robbie because, of course, he is a Bible-believing Christian, and that is a major aspect to his Flat Earth belief. And so I wanted to talk to Robbie about the Christian perspectives regarding Flat Earth and a few other questions. There are many Christians that claim Genesis is a literal account, biblical creationists, and different ministries that go by that title that challenge the theories of evolution, challenge the Big Bang theory, and different aspects that all tie into things that would contradict the biblical narrative. And so I want to ask you, what is the difference between somebody who's taking the Bible literally in the flat earth sense and a Christian that might not be a flat earther yet still holds to a literal Genesis account?
Well, I would say it's important to look at the literal interpretation because it's a slippery slope once you start interpreting things as poetic or allegory. For example, the Bible is very clear that the sun, moon, and stars were created after the earth. This goes in direct opposition to everything that mainstream science teaches. If you start looking at what scientism, and I say scientism because much of what we're taught today is not true science. It's scientism, which is nothing more than a belief, but it is a direct opposition, a war against the truth of the Bible. So it's very, very important from the foundations of the very beginning of the Bible, Genesis. We have to have a good understanding of what we're looking at when we start looking into the rest of the Bible, because it's a slippery slope. Like I said before, how do you interpret things as literal, poetic, allegory, if all of a sudden in the very beginning, in Genesis, you're already saying that's poetic and that's allegory?
For many, for decades, we had people like Ken Hovind and other, people that would really go to bat against evolution. But I think that in the last several decades, we have this phenomenon where Christians, believers don't want to be seen as backwards or uneducated. And for whatever reason, a lot of people, jumped on the bandwagon of saying, well, God can do anything. So therefore, even though his word said he did this, he really could have done, this over here. He could have created everything, a certain way, looking a certain amount of years old. He could, create a globe, and he can create, vast galaxies and ever expanding, universe. I really think for whatever reason, people stopped short when it came to cosmology. So I think it was just time for a fresh set of eyes, and an enthusiastic people who were a little bit skeptical of what the governments and the powers that be, NASA and the supposed scientists, which by and large are avowed, and publicly stated as atheistic scientists.
What is the danger of being an accommodationist when looking at the Bible as just poetry or allegory, and how does that relate to flat Earth?
I've had several people just tell me flat out, that what it clearly says in Joshua 10, about the sun and the moon standing still, above a valley, in a localized area. And they'll just say, no, well, that was just, Joshua's perspective, or, God had to use accommodative language. And I really think that maybe it's kind of an extremes, kind of a pendulum swing, where most people who believe in flat Earth would say, yes, certainly there are, parts of Scripture where there's allegory or illustrations being used, but the vast majority of Scripture is very straightforward. In fact, Genesis, I would challenge anyone to show me in Genesis chapter 1 any type of language that would even hint at something figurative. Because, Jake, normally I have people that they'll pull something figurative from somewhere else in Scripture when I'm trying to get them to look at Genesis 1. And they'll say, yeah, but see over here it says this. And I'll say, yes, I agree that your illustration in a whole nother book or in the New Testament is certainly talking about, allegory or whatnot. But show me in Genesis 1, it is clearly an account of what the Father did, what he created, when he created it, as far as what day.
It's all about figures of speech. Well, I'll let you hear from Michael himself.
Many people have asked me, do I take the Bible literally? You would have to be a complete moron to take the Bible literally. So figures of speech emphasize. If I said the ground is dry, it's a statement of fact. The ground is thirsty, the ground doesn't get thirsty. It is a figure of speech that is more picturesque. It adds to the understanding. You get a picture in your mind what it is for the ground to be thirsty. And I don't have to define it for you. You already know. You have a picture because you have been thirsty. And you know what the ground looks like when there's been no rain on it in a desert area, the Mojave Desert.
And he's correct. Properly used figures of speech should convey in the mind of the hearer something at least remotely related to whatever it is you're using as a figure of speech. Same with poetry. If you're going to use poetry or speak in simile or utilize metaphors, symbolic language, whatever you are saying should at least in some way paint a picture in the listener's mind what it is that you're trying to discuss. For instance,
Isaiah says, have you not known, have you not heard, hath it not been told to you from the beginning, i.e. Genesis? Have you not understood from the foundations of the earth? It is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, that stretcheth out the heavens, the Shemaim, as a curtain, and spread them out as a tent to dwell in. Now we have the word as being used there. It's not there for the word circle, but for the tent, it's there because he's making a metaphor for you to think about. The heavens are stretched out over us like or as a tent. So we have a metaphor there. Well, in Isaiah's time, this would be a tent. If he's using a metaphor, people who are hearing his words would associate the metaphor. Okay, tent. It's a structure spread out over a flat surface. A tent. Modern times, something like this maybe.
So that's just one of many examples that I could give. Obviously, when Isaiah used a figure of speech, circle of the earth, and inhabitants are as grasshoppers, and he spreads out the sky as a tent to dwell in, anybody who heard him automatically thought, okay, yeah, a tent, a structure stretched out over a flat surface. Nobody would have had this in mind. Nobody would have even imagined something like this being the truth behind the so-called figure of speech being employed. But beyond that, this is where it gets comical, at least to me anyway.
When you don't understand figures of speech, when you've never spent time with 1,100 pages that are readily available in any community, Baker Bible Bookhouse still publishes this. If you don't want to take the time to do it, then you have no qualifications to really speak about these things in the Bible.
Okay, so if we haven't taken the time to read E.W. Bullinger's book on figures of speech, we have no business talking. First of all, you're assuming that guys like me have not read it, which would be false. I haven't read the whole thing, but a friend of ours has it and has brought it to our Shabbat Bible studies, and we've spent time looking through it, certainly. But beyond that, this guy is saying there's hundreds of figures of speech, and E.W. Bullinger, who for many is an authoritative Bible scholar that people like to reference his work. He's done some great work. I actually love E.W. Bullinger for a number of things. I don't agree with him on everything, certainly not on dispensation theology, which is surprising to me because he's a hardcore dispensationalist. And Michael Rood is, a Hebrew roots guy. So that's kind of weird. But beyond that, clearly Michael didn't do his research. While he's mocking everybody else, he's mocking everybody because we haven't read Bullinger's work on figures of speech. Okay, so hear me now, he is touting E.W. Bullinger as an expert on figures of speech and the usage of figures of speech in the Bible. And he's using this as in the context of saying anybody who takes the Bible literally when it comes to the shape and nature of the earth and the cosmos is an idiot, is a moron. And yet, E.W. Bullinger, who wrote the book on figures of speech, was a documented flat earther. Oh man, this is awesome.
Well, my question to all Christians would be, if you trust these astrologists that are telling you that stars are galaxies and suns and whatever far, far, far away and billions and billions and billions of years, I'd like to know what Bible you are reading from. And please explain to me how all of the stars are going to fall to the earth. And if you don't have an answer to that, I would have to say you're not reading enough into the scriptures. You're not reading enough of the scriptures, and you're not actually studying the word for that particular thing. To be able to just say, oh, that's just a figure of speech, it's this or that. That is not the way I understand it. And like I said before, there's 200 different verses, if not more, about flat earth in scripture.
I think the real issue comes down to who do we trust? Who are we going to believe? Do we believe mankind? Do we believe the supposed, scientists, or are we just going to believe what the Father says? And I think that is so difficult because, we have this white coat, syndrome. And if you're, have several degrees and you have a white lab coat, then somehow, you are the authority. And I think it goes back to, man's wisdom being exalted above the Father's.
I think people have pride, and they've pinned some of these folks up as idols, and I don't think it's by anything by their fault, because from the time that they're young, if you gravitate towards quote unquote science, you're going to respect somebody who's wearing a white coat if they have a doctor behind their name, and completely disregarding the fact that they all had to ride a syllabus or use a syllabus to go through the actual lessons in college and to regurgitate the information that they were given and assigned certain lessons or subject matter or whatnot. So yes, could they be pinning up these scientists as heroes? Have they had their hearts pulled on by patriotism? The biggest thing is that we might have pride that we don't want to admit that we've been lied to, or we may actually like I said, maybe these astrologists, astronauts, whatever, we pin them up as idols, like they're better than everybody because they did this or they did that. And if they didn't do that, then what are they? They're liars. So no matter what, even if it hurts, face the truth. The truth shouldn't hurt. It should set you free. It might hurt at first, but it'll set you free.
And speaking of the truth, of course, with a lot of the underlying conspiracies that build up to flat Earth, there's a lot of deception that seems to be conspiracy fact. Could Christians that are disagreeing with the flat Earth concept be in danger of sweeping aside conspiracies that are proven facts to have exposed actual deception that is challenging the Word of God, challenging Christian concepts? Could we be in danger of sweeping aside these underlying conspiracies just because of the big pill flat Earth being too hard to swallow?
I think it's really important that Christians realize that the Bible is a very conspiratorial book. There's many conspiracies that take place in the Bible. We can't be scared of the word conspiracy. All that means is a cover-up, multiple people conspiring to do something in the dark or in hidden. This is what we're seeing continually with the narrative of mainstream science. For example, scientism teaching the disastrous lie that we evolved over millions and millions of years, yet there's no credible source or scientific validation for their theories. Yet this is taught, to children. The same thing when it comes to our cosmology, taught from a very early age. My son has a little book, and I think it's 6 months and up, looking in there, and one of the things they were basically showing was the globe and teaching the fact that this is where you live. From a very early age, this is indoctrination to the extreme because every child is put through this. I always say that this is one of the most deadly religions there is, scientism, because it affects every single worldview. Whether you're Christian or not, every single person's worldview is shaped by scientism, what we're taught from an early age. This is very important. So if it's the word conspiracy that scares you, maybe think about the scientism aspect of what's going on. Is this truly scientific? Because most Christians that are holding on to these ideas or these facts of truth, wouldn't it be surprising if they learned that what they were holding on to be the truth was indeed a lie? And that's something worthy of anybody looking into this topic. Could it be that there has been a conspiracy to go against the Word of God, the truth of the Bible, and keeping people from being set free?
When you take what science says about creation, then you just look in Scripture, it just doesn't even match up whatsoever. One example is that I went to some different scientific websites, even some kids sites, science for kids kind of sites that were, talking about, kind of just giving it in, I guess, more basic terms for kids. And they would say stuff like, well, the sun was created, 4 billion years ago. And then about 25 million years after the sun was created, then the moon was created, and then they'll say the earth was created way, way after that. But for instance, when you look in Genesis 1, the sun and the moon clearly created, and the stars on day 4, they're created on the same day. So it doesn't even match up, let alone, what science says about when the earth versus the sun was created. And we know from Scripture that it's very clear, because it says there was evening and there was morning, day 4, or a fourth day. So you just can't get around, if you really believe that the Scriptures are God breathed, right? If they are the inspired God breathed words from the Father, then who are you going to believe? Are you going to believe created on day 4 at the same time, with those purposes in mind that he stated specifically? Or are you going to say, no, it was 4 billion years ago, the sun was created? It comes down to having to make that choice.
Satan versus man. Satan conspired against man. This is continuing on. He's the father of lies. He's still doing his thing. So let's see, Satan, which brings in the Big Bang Theory, the evolution, which most people don't know the difference between microevolution and macroevolution. And macroevolution would be one kind, like one species turning into another species. So, for instance, like a cat turning into a chimpanzee. It's never happened. We've never seen it. It's a theory. It's not fact, and it's being taught as fact that evolution or macroevolution is legit and it happened. And there's no science behind that. And scientism is what we should be calling science today, because when you usually mention science, it's some form of scientism. So you had to put some type of faith into this. So you've got the Nazis who started NASA. That's huge. The moon landings, obviously. Space in general, having a vacuum against a non-vacuum without some type of barrier. I believe that most of it's a big, complete money mind shank. The men are taking the money knowing that it's going to mislead young minds down the road. And maybe, quite possibly they would go to hell. And I do believe it's that real. So, yeah.
What would you say are some of your favorite biblical supports for flat Earth? What are some other verses that you like to go to whenever somebody's looking for proofs of flat Earth cosmology in the Bible?
We have in Genesis chapter 1, verses 7, 8, and 9, it talks about the firmament, dividing the waters from the waters. But then in Job chapter 37, verse 8, this is a very well-quoted verse. Hast thou with him spread out the sky, which is strong as a molten looking glass? And, that word rakia, it has that idea of something hammered out or beaten out as, something strong but has been created, right, by a craftsman. That's a really powerful scripture, and I think that goes back to Genesis chapter 1 with the firmament.
Once again, I say firmament. Does the firmament limit God, or does it show, his power and sovereignty and the handiwork, and that he loves us and made an intimate dwelling place for us?
But then there's a few other verses in the next chapter, Job 38, that I think are noteworthy. Verse 14, it is turned as clay to the seal, and it says, and they stand as a garment. And that is in reference, if you back up in verse 13, that is in reference to the earth. And so we understand in Proverbs chapter 8 as well, when it says that he inscribed a compass on the face of the deep. Well, we understand what shape a compass makes. It makes a complete circle. And so many of these verses, I believe, in Job and Proverbs, Genesis, the Psalms, they all paint that similar picture, and they corroborate each other. So not only do we see things in Scripture that are connected to each other relating to biblical cosmology or flat Earth, but we also see things in empirical evidence, things that we can witness with our own eyes. I was able to easily take the two and marry them together and say, okay, this scripture comes to mind when I see this thing in creation, like the ice wall. It makes perfect sense. I believe we can take God at his word and believe what he says, even if it's different from what the modern scientists say.
What are some verses that people often use to challenge flat Earth or to support a globular Earth, and how would you address those verses?
There's really not a lot, when it comes down to it. I mean, they typically will use, I think is Isaiah 40 verse 22, and they'll typically use that, that he sits above the circle of the earth, right? And they will say, well, that's a sphere, that's a globe, and I think that's probably the one verse that I would think of, right? Way before flat Earth came into play for me, and I would say, oh wow, isn't that cool? And in my mind, even though in English the word is circle, I would be picturing God sitting above, the Father, the Creator, sitting up above a globe. And that's Isaiah 40, verse 22. It is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, that stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain, and spreadeth them out as a tent. And, we also have several chapters earlier in Isaiah, we see where Isaiah speaks of the people of God who were wayward and they were in idolatry. And he says, I'm going to roll you up like a ball and toss you into another country. And so there's two different words there. The word for used in Isaiah 40 verse 22 is really circle. It's speaking of a two-dimensional object, not a sphere, not a ball, but the word that is used in the earlier chapters of Isaiah is really that word that could mean a circular, a ball type of an object, a sphere. And so even the biblical writers, understood the difference between the two. If somebody could just show me one scripture, even kind of in a metaphor, or allegory that said, the earth is like an eagle, flying through space, or something relating to it's spinning on its axis. It just doesn't pass the test when you look at all of those other scriptures. It certainly doesn't describe 1,000 miles an hour or anything like it. Everything is very stationary.
A lot of Christians today, if they do believe in a literal Genesis account, they already disagree with a lot of the things we're being taught in schools, in universities, and from these different agencies. And it's interesting that they find the Flat Earth title a divisive topic because it's simply somebody taking a literal account just one step further. And is the censorship that's coming onto Flat Earth a red flag for Christians that might not even be Flat Earthers? Could the censorship move past just taking the Bible literal in a flat earth sense, and then it will be dangerous to be a creationist in general because that's so anti-science?
Yeah, absolutely. And the censorship that's going on YouTube and other social media platforms is extreme. I've seen it increase quite rapidly just in the last few months. And then you have to ask the question, why? If something so ridiculous and silly as flat earth, for most people, including myself, laugh at this when they first hear about it, because it is probably the upper echelon of the most ridiculous thing you can think of when you first hear about it. And yet, YouTube is taking such drastic measures in censoring the information of anything to do with flat earth. Now, you don't see this with other conspiracy theories, such as UFOs. There's no censorship whatsoever on the hundreds of thousands of UFO videos that are out there. But I think this should be a wake-up call, because as Christians, we're seeing the censorship of not only conspiracies, but also anything to do with God's moral law. When they see anything that goes against the narrative of the world system, this is under scrutiny and is also under censorship. We're seeing this with conservative channels. We're seeing this with strong religious views, specifically within the Christian area. But now when you see a tie-in of flat earth, of course, this is tied right into Genesis. This is his creation after all. And it being exposed, definitely there's a spiritual force behind the scenes that's making sure that more people will not see the information, because the truth sets you free.
freedoms and things can be erased if the voice is not strong enough, if it's not loud enough, if there's not enough voices.
We are not anti-science at all, yet they will label anybody that is science denier. They're very, very dangerous. I have seen this rhetoric going on for quite some time, as well as conspiracies. It would not surprise me in the future that there's some sort of terrorist act, and yet when they start looking into it, this person's a bona fide flat earther. That won't surprise me at all. I believe those days are coming. I think this is very important discussion. And when it comes to censorship, when it comes to the rhetoric of saying that people that have such beliefs are dangerous, again, this gets the main public into a state of fear that they don't want to touch these subjects. So I believe that, yes, we will see this happening more and more, not just taking steps of putting info boxes on YouTube, censoring, shadow banning. It will get to a point where they will say, this is dangerous. This is almost cult-like. There's been articles that have come out that saying that people that believe in flat earth are part of a cult. Funny, because if you look up the definition of a cult, none of the flat earthers that I know or that are at any of my international flat earth conferences fall into that category. We have no central leadership. We have no even central train of thought. There's a lot of varying opinions. One thing that we do all agree on, however, is that we're not a spinning ball flying through space.
I think they don't understand the implications of not supporting what the Bible actually teaches. And what they don't realize is that this may not be the topic that they care about or that they believe in, but who knows, 5-10 years down the road, I mean, there might be zero channels, as we would call them, truther channels. They might all be wiped out. And, someone who doesn't believe in flat earth, they can pick another topic that is near and dear to their heart. And where are they going to have a voice? They're not going to have a voice.
Is it important for people to archive this information and become aware of why people are becoming flat earthers today, so that in the future, when all this information is scrubbed from the internet, that these people might understand how this movement even came about?
It's important to have this all documented, because I think we're moving into times where it's going to be harder and harder to find this information.
Understand, hey, even if I don't believe in flat earth, like, they should be able to see the censorship. So stuff like vaccinations and 9/11, and other topics, the moon landing, things that had nothing specifically to do with flat earth are now also being censored.
Could this tie into the things talked about in the scripture titled The Great Deception? And why should this be on somebody's radar that might not be a flat earther today?
Absolutely, because even prophetically it talks about the great deception coming, that many people will be deceived. Again, there are workings that are in place to bring upon, this great deception. I always look at it when it comes to this topic, flat earth, it's not just the end, it's a means to an end. It also prepares humanity for what's to come. So understand that everything that's been constructed, our worldview, shapes what we're going to believe in the future as far as any deceptions. I think it's critically important that people look into it. I think it's time for Christians to stand up and say, wait a minute, I don't care if I'm laughed at. I'm going to stand on the literal interpretation of the Bible, regardless if it conflicts with mainstream science. Genesis is a literal account of creation.
Well, when you look at what is being pushed today with the heliocentric model, the solar system, sun god worship, I mean, it is so prevalent. And when you consider that, I believe the great deception is going to be tied somehow to the Antichrist or to false messiahs, false saviors. When you look at the whole potential of the alien deception, I think that's why Scripture tells us to be ready, right? And to not believe when something false is presented, because he doesn't come out and say it's going to be an alien deception. But I think there's strong evidence to show that that could be the case. And I know a lot of people in the truth community believe very similar on that. But whatever the actual thing is that takes place, if we know what the legitimate truth is from Scripture, we'll be able to discern between what's true and what's counterfeit. And I don't know if you've heard this illustration before, Jake, but these treasury agents that study currency and they're trying to sniff out what is counterfeit. You would think that they would spend most of their time looking at all the different counterfeits, and they do some of that, but they spend the majority of their time looking at the original. Because if they know exactly what the original is, then they can sniff out something that is a very close close but no cigar. They'll say, nope, this is not the original thing. This is a counterfeit. Because you could spend all your time, trying to keep up with all the bad guys out there, that are changing currencies all the time. And but if you know the genuine article, regardless of what the deception is, if it doesn't match up with the word of the Father, you're going to be able to say, this is not of the Father. This is of Satan. This is a deception. This is of man.
In believing the flat earth model, how would that prevent a alien deception from deceiving somebody?
And it's, I think it's related to the whole, fear thing, where, NASA says, oh, there's this giant asteroid, that's hurling towards Earth, and it's, it's going to maybe pass by us here, 3 months from now. So, scientists are kind of working on a plan to see if, what can we do in the event that it gets too close to us? Well, same kind of thing, Jake. When you understand that we live on a flat plane of existence that is, fixed, it is immovable, it's set on pillars, and it's, these supposed planets are really just wandering stars, and that, there aren't multiple, galaxies far, far away. You don't have to worry about, the Klingons coming to get you. I mean, any type of alien life form that is presented, we will know that it's really demonic in nature, because let's face it, Satan is the father of lies. He's the great deceiver. The demonic forces work for him, and they will be part of that deception. And if we know the truth, then even if we don't understand, these wonders, these signs and miracles that are being done, before our eyes, probably most likely with some sort of technology, that we'll be able to say, look, I just know that this is not of the Father.
What percentage would you say are people that are coming at it from a faith-based perspective?
Well, I would say that what you're seeing is at least a 70% in the community itself. Definitely people that are represented at the Flat Earth International conferences. Yeah, you definitely see a lot of people of faith coming to, Flat Earth or understanding their beliefs through the Bible. However, there's many people that take a purely scientific standpoint when it comes to this topic. Yet, in their investigation, it leads them to the one truth, that they were created, that this place has been created, that they're special, that they're unique. And that is what's so extraordinary. There is no atheist in Flat Earth. There's a lot of people that still don't believe in the Bible, but they all believe that this was not an accident, that we truly were created, and that there is something special going on, and that the world's elite have been trying to hide that, which I find fascinating, that really in Flat Earth, there are no atheists.
Does the Father lie to us to protect us? No, he protects us with the truth, and he encourages us to follow along and trust in him. So I think, when we see the government agencies such as NASA, lying to us, we have to take stock of that. And we need to guard against trusting them again, especially in things that contradict the word of the Father.
God never said, don't expose the lies of NASA. If it's a lie, we're supposed to expose the lies. We're supposed to expose the lies, are we not?
I've never seen more media jump on and start quoting Bible scriptures. I've never seen the Bible highlighted more on mainstream news in any type of conference, in any type of setting or topic. I think that God is showing the world something by grabbing attention of the mainstream world and yet highlighting his creation. Understand one thing. I've been involved in evangelism for a very long time. I've never seen a greater evangelistic opportunity in my entire life. I've never seen more atheists become agnostics or believers instantly in my entire life, this quick.
To have an atheist come up to you, complete stranger, and say, I believe in God now, that's a very powerful thing. And I enjoy knowing that there are more and more people who were hoodwinked by scientism coming to know the Father, the Creator, the truth in all things. So there you go.
Again, Flat Earth is not salvational for the believer. This is not a topic where we divide over when it comes to fellow Christians. But understand that this is a vehicle and it's being used to draw thousands upon thousands of people back to the truth of the Bible and the true creator of creation, which I find incredibly amazing because I've never seen anything like it. So I would say for that point, they should support it because, again, it is definitely changing people's lives.
So when it comes to people in all religious faiths that have a hard time with it, it's just because of the literal physical conditioning. Not to say that it's Orwellian, but it is kind of in a way, which is like if you're told over and over and over again, it's not just you, it's your parents and their parents and their parents going back, something like 25 generations at least. You had no chance. You were born into this. It's like there's no one you can even go to that other than what we're doing now. You can even go to. You can't go to your grandfather or your great grandfather and say, "Yeah, do you ever believe in flat Earth?" It's like, no, never did. That's stupid. And so it's a physical. It's literally a physical thing that stops you. If the globes were in the classroom, the reaction wouldn't be nearly. All right. Let me end on this, which is even though you have strong faith in things, you still have faith in basic science, because it's been drilled into your head for a long time. So it's tough for you to break out of that, even though you want to. And so, yeah, you can fight against the Big Bang Theory and evolution and carbon dating all day long. But that globe's been with you for a long time. And then once you finally snap, again, there's this journey for people. They don't believe it. They don't believe it. In fact, I've watched people do it. Like people have made anti-flat Earth videos. They've said, "I hate flat Earth. Flat Earth is stupid. Flat Earth is dumb." And then all of a sudden it's like, it's not that bad. Flat Earth is good. Flat Earth it's like what? It's the one drawback of the flat Earth journey is they forget what it took to get there. So yeah, it's been a wild ride so far.
We're warned of and told about our adversary, the father of lies. And, he's the first one to conspire. I will say this, some of the stuff that we've been taught as science, as truth, is not truth. It's theoretical. It's still, not even in the books as having any type of relevance or authority in reality as being truthful or being true. So if we're told to test all things, science cannot and should no longer get a hall pass just because, well, we've known this for a long time, but what if we haven't? What's wrong with testing it? I say, get out there and do it. Get out there and test it. And if you're a Christian, you should want the truth no matter what it is. Once again, own it. Own the truth. Know it.
My name is Jake Grant, and I guess I'm a perpetrator, not because I wish to promote misinformation, but because of principle. No topic should be above reproach. No conspiracy beyond inspection. If you have a love for the truth, it shouldn't trouble you to hear someone else's position, because it is the mark of an educated mind to entertain a thought without accepting it. In early 2015, when I first began to notice videos circulating on Flat Earth, I reacted as many do, with dismissal. Jokes came to mind regarding the intelligence of any person willing to commit to the idea. Though as time passed, I began to listen to what was being presented. I realized that there was something important about this strange viral trend, something that could influence the freedom of speech and the way information being shared on the internet is treated. This does not stop with a debate on whether we went to the moon in 1969 or not, but rather the far heavier question of what the objective truth is. Whose stamp of approval should we be looking for when it comes to information? This is an important concept when history is often twisted or rewritten. Ever heard the quote, "History is written by the victors"? Well, to some extent, it is true. It seems almost human for us to add our own narrative to the story, swaying things based on our preconceived notions or emotions. It's not just wars and political agendas that get veiled by subjective opinion. Scientific theories are promoted or denigrated depending on the academic consensus of the time. Researchers risk their funding and credentials if what they discover seems to contradict what others have staked their entire professional career on. See, The flat earth theory is not just a crazy claim that calls people to stand on a single set of beliefs without any empirical evidence, but rather a system of interconnected conspiracies that challenge truths we have been taught as self-evident. This is what fascinated me about the movement so much. They were not so much presenting a set of beliefs, but poking holes in the narratives we've been spoon-fed as a society. Could the Flat Earth movement be growing worldwide because there is some merit to their questions? In the end, you can choose from several different positions. 1. We have never been lied to, no conspiracies exist, government agencies are completely trustworthy, and the Earth is exactly as we have been shown. 2. We have been lied to, there is some merit to the conspiracies, albeit ulterior motives other than hiding the nature of creation. Or 3. We have been meticulously deceived through propaganda to hide numerous conspiracies, all of which put into question the nature of cosmology and the Earth. On the surface, a flat Earth seems too grandiose of a deception, and if it were not for friends of mine bringing up the nuances of the theory to me, I would not have realized the impact this movement could have on the world. It's much less claiming what the Earth is, and more so pointing out the issues with what we have been told to believe.
Yeah, Tommy Sutherland's 11 years old. He's so attentive in class, repeating what he's told. For a boy his age, he looks ready to fly. He also happens to dress just like Bill Nye. He enjoys learning about all the planets and such, though he'd rather be outside, experimenting much. There he could reflect on the theories they present. Something's amiss, something quite deeper. One night, reading about the curve of the ocean, he came across a rather impossible notion. Such horrible news, most would not survive. Could the Earth be flat? Hidden by lies? He dug out his telescope from his pop shop, went to the beach to test the Earth's drop. But what would arise as he gazed over the pier? The land and a boat that had just disappeared. Bewildered, he ran the numbers at hand. 8 inches per mile squared, but it did not stand. While alone on the beach, the sound quickened away. A quiet voice spoke deep inside. I created it all with you in mind. Tommy tried to talk, but he just couldn't speak. The years of indoctrination that made him weak. So he dropped to his knees and scrawled up in the sand, I am a new person and a part of your plan. He started a group, 2 friends and his dog. Together they searched for answers there in the fog. They didn't just shine a light on the academic crimes. They run tests outdoors most of the time, while other kids repeat theories like they've won. This gang is about action, not to be outdone. They collect real data under the stars. Planets are lights, close up rather than far. As the sun comes round, it's a perspective thing. The moon's its counter, very near we've gleamed. The family did jest, you're crazy with no cred. These experiments you do, they're all up in your head. Science ignores facts, unable to debate. You are not special, Tommy. You came from an 8. You are not worthy of this random round ball. Haven't you heard, homie? We discovered it all.